Hello there, people and listeners of the Hungry Podcast. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Tom, Barton and Phil Eeels onto the podcast. Tom and Phil are the co-founders of Honest Burger. Probably one of my favourite burgers in London. Actually, I went in Tooting the other day with loads of that dipped in that gravy you've got. It's absolutely delicious. They've now scaled it from one site in Brixton, I think 10, 11 years ago, up to 40 sites. Have just launched the smashed Honest Burger, which looks, again, insane. So, guys, super grateful, very excited for this. And, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us along.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to be here.
I want to start with, in doing some research, I want to start with a bloke called Nigel. Is
Nigel Worthy?
Well, so I was listening to your podcast, which I must say to listeners is of one hilarious. It's like the Ant and Decker burgers. I think it's fucking jokes, mate. I'll let you guys decide that one. But you said you said Nigel is the greatest orchestrator of fun in a restaurant you'll ever see. I was like,
okay. And outside of a restaurant as well, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Nigel would fare in today's world. We have to caveat some of these stories.
Probably not great.
Nigel was. He said, I've always liked hospitality, but I've always worked in restaurants, so we've always been around it as kids and stuff. And then we worked down this place in Barton where me and him met. And I think it's safe to say we both realised what's possible on a shift. And it's certainly from my side, that this is a bit more front of house and Tom's a bit more food. So certainly the kind of culture and the vibe I've always wanted to try and create in Honest was this idea that someone in the room who's just got their hands on all the strings, and the vibe and the atmosphere is just dictating it. And it was like a performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you should when you go to a decent restaurant as a customer, you go there for fun. You're gonna part with some serious cash. Well, everyone bins anyway. It's a punch restaurant. People go in there most of the time. Obviously, you get the odd dick, which did just happen, but most people were there to have a great time, and the people working there were there to have a great time as well. And that's something I'd never experienced in a restaurant before. And Nigel was the master of it, wasn't he? He would like I said, people were drinking on shift all the time. People were getting up to stuff they probably shouldn't have been whilst working in a restaurant, but it was fucking good fun.
Yeah, it was. He was unbelievable at the way he talked to customers. I think that's what I learned. Yeah. I learned my craft of shift running, and anyone who works in Honest, who has worked in Honest, who hears this will be smiling, because I've drilled it into our guys for a long, long time that shift running, being the shift manager, that person on that shift, controlling the door, controlling the atmosphere.
You're setting the tone for the shift, aren't you? If you're in a bad mood, your team are going to realise that, and it's going to be a rough shift. You're in a great mood. Nigel, I can't talk about Nigel and say one of the best things I've ever seen him do. Where this old woman, Riddle-wrapped is old school, but it's good fun. But you go there, you could spend 400 quid a bottle of champagne if you want. And this woman comes in, she's probably well into her 70s with a proper fur coat, a big mink kind of fur jacket on. They're obviously going to some theatre or something. And she walks in expecting all these airs and graces because she's about to drop a cash.
It looks like that sort of place as well.
It's got candles and marble and everything.
Chandeliers, that's what I'm trying to say.
And she says to Nigel, she takes a jacket off, says, "Excuse me, where will you hang my coat for me?" He doesn't even stop walking, just goes, "Back of your chair, love," and just carries on going. I just watched this whole thing, and she was devastated by how rude he was to her. And shitting not, at the end of the evening, she was high-fiving him, two kisses on the fucking cheek.
Why?
Because he broke that barrier down, and she loved him by the end of it. Initially, she was like, "How dare you?"
How deep do you want to go? Because I've got
keep going deeper.
Theories on this, and I'm studying behavioural science at the moment, so I'm really.
That's the job at him.
Yeah. It's a question actually, mate. You beat me to it. Yeah.
What are you master of? Not yet.
Not yet. Behavioural science. So,
that's Rory Sutherland's behavioural science, isn't it?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, that's him. Was what he does. Yeah.
I think he would call himself a behavioural scientist.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought it might be behavioural economics. I was getting fucking
similar,
same shebang. Okay, sweet.
I've also done a degree in philosophy, so you can tell where the brain.
Oh, right. Okay, let's dig deep into this, Phil.
I think the best customer experiences is when customers don't get their own way the whole time. Let me say that on record. There's a risk. Controversial. Yeah, but do you know when someone just commands the room a little bit, or the food is good, like, is amazing, and ultimately I think what we really want, when we walk into restaurants, we want to feel relaxed, like we're going to get looked after. And you start making those decisions within the first interaction. Did I get eye contact? Did they have to look over their shoulder when they talk how long the table's going to be? Like, all these little things tell you whether, okay, I'm in your hands and I trust you. And he just had that air about him, didn't he? Just bring it back to Nigel and just sort of, you're in here and we're going to make sure we have a good time. You kind of do on our terms a little bit. Like 90%, like, you have to be the customer wants. But like, there's this 10%, I've always felt like, call it customer training, where you just have to get the customer to get out of their own way a little bit and go, just chill the fuck out. We're going to look after you. Then, of course, you have to make sure they have a good time. Now, Nigel, you can't do and say some of the stuff you used to say and then not back it up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the caveat Nigel did sometimes end really badly with some people, but 99% of the time, you work, and it was great fun. We all had, I'd never worked in a restaurant environment like that, where I was like, there's no like, I'm not going to work being like, oh, fuck's sake, I can't bother to be here. You're going to work like knowing you're going to have a great time, which is what we want Honest to be like. It's hard, especially when you grow in business. You've got lots of different people who don't get it. Some get it too much. We've had stories. We try and say to our people, you can, if you want to give someone a free meal, go for it. No one in head office is going to kick off about that. You want to go and drop a bottle of tobacco on the table instead of just giving them a measly shot, and go for it. But that is caveat because sometimes we have, I know you have to go drink a shot of whiskey at like 11 o'clock in the morning and go, well, Phil told me I could do it. And you're like,
it's true. And then these are the growing pains of getting bigger, right? At scale, when you're small, you can kind of get away with that stuff a lot easier. But yeah, Culture and Honest always was like, Chewbacca was the shot in Brighton.
Delicious.
No, never had
It's
it.
everywhere in Brighton. And
What sort of flavours? Like,
Hazelnut liqueur.
oh yeah.
It's an Italian shop basically, and it's in Brighton. You cannot go to a place in Brighton and get it. There's a story for that which I won't bore you with, but anyone who wants to find out, just Google that. But Chewbacca, I brought it up to London. I was like, "We're doing this," and it's meant to be, when you go to some Italian sort of in the back streets and you're having a meal, and then the waiter comes over and says, "Oh, you want a grappa?" Or
Yeah.
They don't just come over with a little shot on the tray. They just slam the bottle down with 2 empty glasses. They go, like this, and being British, we're a bit like, shit. Should I have one? And then you go, oh no, and you end up having like 3, and then he has one, and I'm like, I just love that. Like, there's service, and then there's that, and you can call that hospitality. I know what that bit, but yeah, it's epic when it's done well. But it's harder. Tom's right. I said this. It's okay. You can have a shot with your customers, and then some waitress in one of our restaurants was having a shot of whiskey at 11:30 in the morning, and then the excuse was that apparently Phil said it was okay. So,
It's. As you said, it's a growing pain, and one thing I want to talk about is we'll save it for later on. Is like how a lot of people say how scale kills magic. Like when you're small, you've got these. It's super easy to keep the magic because there's 3 sites. I interviewed the founder of Popham's, the bakery.
Oh, they're
so sick. Yeah, he was literally sat there. Yeah, lovely guy. And he was like, it's easy right now because I can just fucking hop on a moped and be at the other site, right? But as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, it's harder to like have those little moments of magic. But at the same time, if you don't, you become quite stale and pallid and bland. Do you know what I mean? So it's, I definitely want to explore that.
Dilute it.
You dilute it, yeah.
In terms of Honest, I'd say it's the only thing I've been so obsessed with for years, and have tried many things, some successfully, some unsuccessfully.
Let's go. We'll go back to that. I want to go back to Nigel because I think this guy seems super interesting. So you said, Phil, he's the. Well, Tom, you said he's the greatest orchestrator of fun, and then you said he's like when someone has a hold on things and can like pull the strings. What were the lessons you took from him, specifically like the principles that could help our listeners that you let soak into the Honest culture from Nigel at Riddle and Fins?
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, means the absolute world to me. I'd be so grateful for a small favour, please. It is so hard growing a YouTube channel. It is so bloody hard. If you please enjoy these videos, just click the subscribe button. More subscribers equals bigger guests equals better conversations, and hopefully you can learn more as you build your food and drink brand. Thank you so much.
Lessons. That you have to be like, this sounds really cheesy, but I was going to say you have to be authentic. Like, you have to allow, when I talk to myself about running the business and owning the business and the culture we create, I think we have to allow our guys to express themselves. So, that's why we don't really have uniforms and stuff like that. So there's lots of things that go behind it. You can't just say someone be like Nigel, like it doesn't work, right? You can't say, I can't tell you to laugh.
Well, I just did, yeah. Oi, oi.
I can't tell you to laugh, I've got to tell you a joke. We want people to take pride in the food, but you can't tell someone to take pride in something. You have to give them a reason, and our reason is that we make our chips, and we chop up beef, and mince it, all the stuff that we do, right? So when it comes to behaviour, like you have to give people. It's the context and the environment, and I think what Nigel was so good at is he just created this environment where you just knew he was on it. Like I think if you're a customer and if you're in the team, you just knew when he said it was an hour and a half for a table, and this restaurant was popular. He used to send people off. I remember getting the clipboard for the first time to write people's names and numbers, and they go to the pub and we call them back. And it's a big thing to say to a customer, I want your money, but I don't want it for another hour and a half. So you just fuck off and have a G&T. I'll call you back in an hour and a half, and then your table will be ready. It's a big deal. Right?
Yeah.
They just don't want it now. I want it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then for them, they're going to look you up and down, and if you look over your shoulder when they say how long it's going to be, then you've already lost it. If you don't know straight away, like if you don't say with a bit of confidence, like it's a good thing. I always say to my guys, you can make 15 minutes sound like an hour, or you can make it sound like 30 seconds. I just want to take how long? 15 minutes. I'm really sorry. Okay, it's only 15 minutes. Chill out, have a drink, have a beer. I'll come get you. Like the way you just stay 15 minutes is everything, right? And it's whether you're hungry for it or not. He just had the strings, the atmosphere. What is it? It's lighting, it's music, it's the team, it's the kitchen. Are they coping? It's what does this customer want?
It's fun as well, man. He allowed people to have fun on shift.
Like how? Or
Like just making stupid jokes, like being very informal with customers. Like he used to do all sorts of stuff I probably shouldn't say on camera, but he was just. You talk about set the right tone. I have a good example. I spoke in a pub and the head chef and pastry chef, husband and wife, and when they'd had a shit morning and had an argument or something, the entire restaurant would be like we've all had a shit morning and horrible experience. And it just filtered from them. And this is exactly the same with whoever's leading the shift, shift runner or general manager or whatever. If they're in a good mood and they've got a spring in their step, then the whole shift will feel like that. And having fun, and it really bugs me in this country that hospitality is always seen as a stepping stone to a real job. We talked earlier before about in the city and stuff like that. Like working in the city, that's a real job. You put time on, that's a real job. Hospitality, it feels like it's this kind of like it's not taken seriously, and as a result of that, you don't tend to get serious characters who work. But when you do, and when you see people that actually love what they do, they take pride in it, and they are fucking good at what they do, and the ability that which Nigel had to turn that old woman with a fur coat. Initially, in that meeting, she hated him, where you could see like contempt in her eyes, like, who the hell do you think you are? By the end of the night, an hour later, she's parted with probably 500 quid, and she's high-fiving him, giving a kiss on the cheek. Like, that is a skill that should be rewarded and should be applauded. Right? And that's what a good hospitality person, worker should be. They should be able to read someone, put their imprint on them, have fun with them, and get it. And Nigel was a master at that. Like most people, you could not turn a situation like that around. You fucked it in day one. That's it. But you could turn it around. But
it's breaking the barrier. I think you said earlier. You got to break that first barrier down. And this is why I go customers. There's that 10% bit to go. Just be open to the idea that this person might not just be a server. They're not just going to say the usual script to you, and they're going to.
But they always say like a really good judge of character is how do you treat a waiter.
Yeah, totally.
It's bizarre, man. I know people in like. I'm actually not going to say his name because it's a bit awkward, but who I really like, a really nice, like, lovely person. As soon as he's in a service environment,
I've got mates like this, yeah.
Shit. And do you know what? Moves them. I'm always like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you suddenly just a totally different person when this stranger comes to serve you food?
How much is there a correlation, by the way, between the people that will always moan about having bad service and that person being a dick?
Mate.
Like, how often is it you think, I know people like, say Brent's son, which I'm not friends with any dicks, but I met people that always like, always moaning about some kind of service. And then you realise, well, yeah, because you're not a particularly warm or open person. So when you walk in and the waitress says, hey, say hey back.
Yeah.
And you
And when they say, how are you? When someone says, how are you?
How are you?
The service right, and they'll be like, fine.
Yeah.
My table's at 7, so what is it really? It's like, no, ask him how they are as well.
And this is the customer training bit, and I think our job is to make people feel like that from the first 30 seconds count. But it's hard. People are reaching. One last Nigel story if you want it.
Yeah, keep going, mate. Nigel sound. How old was this bloke? Like old.
40s, yeah, wasn't he? So he's not in the industry now.
From Brighton, right? Yeah.
He's like a Brighton institution.
He's basically Brighton. He's well known. Yeah. He one thing he did. Do you remember I can't even say the word, but the C word that we're not allowed to say. Let's call it the dickhead list, right? And he used to have, so there's a bit of paper that was in the back of the kitchen. That's the first one. I've said this to myself on this, by the way. Freak out. You might freak out with this. There's a piece of paper at the back of the kitchen. Right? And I didn't know I hadn't heard about it first. And I saw him in some altercation at the door. Someone was being arsy with him. Because it was Friday night. It took people 2 hours for a table. They'd all come down with their fur coats on from London. They wanted champagne. They're oysters by the sea. And they're being told, sorry, it's 2 hours. So every now and again, you get someone to be rude to us. It happens in our industry a lot. Right? So I saw him in this, and then this one was sort of locked, and he sort of marched into the kitchen. He came back about 2 minutes later, back on the door like nothing happened, like shows on, right? And I was like, "Where did you just go?" And he was like, "Oh, I just chalking it off, ridiculous." And that was the thing. That was his thing. It was like if someone was rude to him, he had to go and do something to shake it off. And what he did, he just go and literally tally it on the thing. At the end of the night, we get the list off the wall. And we'll laugh, we have 5 tickets. And I all cheers our little glass of wine, and then I even laugh about it. But I always remember thinking it was really smart that he used to do, because if you carry that experience into the next one, then that's when you get, that person was rude to you. Maybe he didn't do something right. I don't know. I didn't hear the conversation, but you can't carry that. Then you walk up. I've got to be. You're not going to be rude to me, right? And his thing was to go and write on the dickhead list. Some people need to go and stand in the walk-in fridge and cool off. Some people need to get a cigarette, count to 10, hold your breath, whatever it is, right? We're just kind of shaking that experience off. The dickhead list, they've lived on for a while.
It's clever how it's a very clever reframe for people going into the shift in that acceptance that there's going to be dickheads. And I think that's a clever little.
It's hard though, isn't it? I don't think this is the same in all service industries, but our experience hospitality, we know it very well. But the amount of customers I've spoken to where we fucked up big time, we've got it wrong, we've made a big error, whatever the error is, it's entirely honest fault, and they come at us with so much rage and anger, and then as soon as you go, I'm really sorry, man, we fucked it. We've made a big mistake. And they're like, you're cutting corners, you sold out, you're nothing compared to what you used to be. And I'm like, whoa, we just got it wrong.
We just made a mistake, man.
We just made a mistake. For whatever reason, we sell 100,000 burgers a week. We got one wrong. And then they're like, actually, that's fair enough. Yeah, I get it now. And they're kind of like, it's like this rage balloon just gets deflated.
It's like, on social media, I think there's 2 avenues for people who are quite angry in themselves, that it's socially acceptable for them to go at people. So one is anonymously on social media, but 2 is in service in the service industry, whereby you can take out all your wife being a dickhead to you, or your kids not speaking to you. You can take that out on a honest burger.
Have you ever been on some, they've turned around. I remember Twitter for rebranded it was just a complaints forum. It was just a cesspool of anger. You have someone who might tweet us and complain about something, and you go and look up their their account, and literally everything is like a complaint to Network Rail, a complaint to TfL, a complaint to McDonald's. Everything is just like, I was like, hey, I feel fucking sorry for you.
Yeah.
And you've got 6 followers, and all you do is just vent angry little tweets to people. I'm like,
that's brutal, man. Some people do it. I mean, I think, let me stick up customers for a second now on the other side, because I'm kind of mostly on that side as well, but I think because so many places do this badly, don't deal with issues properly, right? And that's another big thing. We've always said it on this, right? If you make a mistake, just walk into the table and go, yeah, we've cocked up, here's some free chips.
If you make a mistake, you've got an opportunity to make it right. Which is a game changer. You've got.
I used to look forward to little mistakes.
Mate, when I get we get our helps managers, they'll say to me, I've got a customer who's really fucked off. Done something bad, and I was like, cool, send them my way. And I'll gladly, I'll set up a Teams call, talk them through it, explain what's gone wrong. You have an opportunity to turn a negative experience into a massively positive one. It is a huge opportunity if you go into it with an open heart and you're like, and an honest heart, and you're like, yeah, we made a mistake. Or sometimes actually the customer's been out of order. And I've said that to people. I'm like, look, to be honest with you, yes, we did this wrong, but I think your reaction was pretty, unnecessary, and you upset our manager and you made them cry after that shit because they had to deal with, really frustrated, and you had 3 glasses of wine. And again, I think that kind of adult conversation, which some brands are just like, no, it's customer is always right, which is bullshit. It is. No one is always right. Doesn't matter. A business isn't always right either.
There's I'm reading this book of the guy's name's like Will Gurdier, I think his name is, Unreasonable Hospitality. Really interesting book. And he worked under Danny Mayo, who's the Shake Shack guy, and he talks about how he puts employees first. If you look after the employees, then the customers, it will follow suit. And I think it's just some of the stuff he says in that book is really interesting about like how the customer actually comes last. But if you get the employees, well, I mean, that sounds so David Brent, the customer comes last, but you know what I mean? It's an interesting look at it. In terms of what I think fascinates, so we've talked about this culture, how to sort of set the tone, as something you both have said. Obviously, Nigel was the orchestrator of fun. He's great at setting the tone. Can you teach that? First question. Second question, how do you spot that when you're hiring people? That.
I don't think you teach it.
I think you can teach. No, I'm a big believer. More recently now, you get back to I can't wait to do to laugh. It's you create an environment where people are allowed to do it or they're not, right? And our responsibility on us, we've got to create an environment where you're teeing it up so it could happen. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? No,
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, but it's this ephemeral kind of thing that we're talking about. But it's important. But how do you create that environment then? Do you know what I mean?
Not clipping everyone's wings. Right? Yeah. This is a great story that Ollie, our head people, have told me that he heard. I think it was an interview he had. There was a business, which I won't name. I think we probably have mentioned it very publicly before. They have a list of words that you're not allowed to say to customers, and it's not like shit or fuck or anything like that. It's like one of those guys. You're not to say guys to customer because that's totally offensive. It's like, really? You come work for us and you're like, right, here's things you're not allowed to say to a customer. And just be like the uniform. And the fuck is wrong with people? Like, how pigeonholed and boxed in do you want this person to be when they're meant to be a Nigel? You want to have someone who will make someone laugh and they'll be just as happy and talk about the service as much as they will the food. But in an environment like that, you're just going to get a robot. And maybe that's what chain restaurants are looking for. They just want the same boring shit.
It's totally what they want. That list of words example is the classic. I call it. It's a 3 out of 5 mentality. It's my kind of shit on this one.
3 out of 5.
Well, they're going for a 3 out. If you think of TripAdvisor reviews, right?
Right.
It's a 3 out of 5 review, and if you ever looked at TripAdvisor, there's not many 3 out of 5 reviews because why the fuck would you write 3 out of 5?
Yeah.
When there are, have a look. When there are, there'd be 2 words. It'd be it's all right. It'll be very informative. It'd be went here last night, had a nice burger or something like that, right? It would be really shit, basically. Now, I'm really extreme on this point. I would genuinely rather someone gave us a 1 out of 5 than a 3 out of 5. I'd rather you hated it than just thought nothing of it, right? Or an indifference. Indifference is the worst. Even someone's indifferent about it. It's at least shit. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. Or because we made a mistake and then I can fix the mistake. I can't get you as a 3 out of 5 person and really make you feel much better about that experience. Whereas a 1 out of 5 person, you can at least call them up or email them and go, man, we really got that up, didn't we? Come back in for another one, we'll sort it out. We probably will sort it out, right? So 3 out of 5, and that's the you can create an environment where actually, and I think it couldn't be a better example of what chain restaurants to me is you create systems and processes for 3 out of 5 experiences because it's safe. And is that not what chain restaurant is? Consistent, you know what you're going to get. It's always very professional. Service is very well trained. Do you ever write a 5 out of 5 review? No, because it's missing. I'm not saying it's completely impossible for these places to get to 5 out of 5. They're always going to have great people in all sorts of businesses, right? But it's not, I don't think it's the environment they're trying to create. So if you want the Nigels of this world, 5 out of 5, then you have to accept, like we had to with Nigel, every now and again he'd tell the wrong joke or say the wrong thing, and you get a 1, right? But that's the environment. So I think our staff, like, can you train it? No, create an environment where people can express themselves a little bit, and then not freak out when you get a few 1s, because you will. And then for me, it's just tell stories. Like we use Workplace, like Facebook, I'm sure other people have, WhatsApp or Slack or whatever, right? Like for me, the job is just how do we tell stories when it's done really well? Like posting reviews, putting stuff in, just championing those people that do it. And that, if you're a new starter, there's a really great phrase about culture, like with social learners. Michelle Ann Klein says we're all social learners. It's not like culture is like gene replication, like you can't inherit culture. Like you walk into a room and the first thing you decide is you look around the room and you go, how do I fit in here? And you look at what people are doing, and it doesn't fucking matter what we've written in the manual that no one reads, that gets thrown on your bed, right? Like you look around the room in this restaurant and you go, how do I fit in here? And if you see everybody diligently wiping the tables after after a customer leaves, and you go, well, that's what we do here. And it takes a hell of a lot of strength of character to break out from what everyone else is doing, to be the one that doesn't do that. So culture is literally, you look around the room, how do I fit in here? What's everyone else doing? And if everyone else is coming late or ignoring customers at the door, then that's the culture. That's what it is. It doesn't matter what's written in the bloody manual. So
how do you say, like, what have you got wrong? Because I think when some of the people I've interviewed, so Julian Metcalf from Pret, he talked about he had this manager, and his exact words was the guy was an absolute dickhead, right? And he saw this girl on the tube. She was crying. She was curious. She basically espoused all the values of the brand. He went back in. She basically rose through the ranks at Pret. But he basically says you have to have these almost knocks to make the thing stronger, right? To make the culture stronger. What have been some of the things you've got, like, at the time, like, fucking hell, this is a nightmare, wrong, that you think now have really emboldened the honest culture? Delighted to announce the extension of our partnership with the wonderful Billy and Paul from Mackenzie Jones, but even more exciting, they have just launched a brand new brand as part of Mackenzie Jones called MKJ Ignite. MKJ Ignite is a recruitment firm which specializes full shebang, focus entirely on challenge brand space. They work with some incredible brands: Lucky Saint, Good Rays, Purdy and Fig, Hunter and Gather, and Real Superfoods. They can support with your hiring needs across all levels, top to bottom, junior entry-level jobs, all the way through up to MD and CEO level. So if you're looking for a field sales stomper, a sales wizard, an ops guru, a supply chain sensei, you name it, MKJ Ignite can help you out. And look, if you're looking to wet your whistle, ignite your curiosity, then check out the poddy we recorded with them back in July, laden with wisdom, all about like do's and don'ts of hiring and like how to create the perfect job description. You will love it. Guys, are you ready? There is gonna be some absolutely, totally, brilliantly bonkers next level madness coming your way today. Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new stratosphere for free? Imagine connecting your product to a digital world through a simple smartphone scan. You know the drill, scan it, bish bash bosh, you're away. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the magic of the new GS1 powered QR codes. These next generation barcodes act as a gateway to a world of endless possibilities. They connect your product's unique identity to multiple online sources of enriched real-time content. Why on planet Earth should you be getting your mitts on these GS1 powered QR codes? Well, look, very, very simple, mate. GS1 will help you drive revenue, upsell and cross-sell your amazing products, boost your bottom line. Yes, please. Where do I sign? Enhance customer engagement. Look, delight your customers with dynamic content that captivates and keeps them coming back for more. Please, sir, can I have some more? Yes, you can. Comply with regulations. Look, you want to be building your brand. You don't want to be knee-deep, wading through a deep river of legislation, aggravation. These barcodes allow you to stay ahead of the curve. Look, don't allow this beautiful boat of boundless opportunity to sail away into the molting sunset. Be on that boat. Join GS1's UK's free pilot program today. Yes, it's completely free. There will be a link in the show notes. Thank you so much.
I mean, a lot. We made a lot. So even in our podcast, we had to do our
YouTube episodes.
Podcasts over 2 episodes.
No, I listen to both. They're hilarious. Yeah.
Anyone else? We've got a lot. I mean, we've got some that are just barefaced, stupid, kind of like you just really annoy. I think from a people perspective, it's really hard, right? It's just you never really know how someone's gonna get on because we've all got shit to deal with in our life. And there's like peaks and troughs of everyone's existence and personal struggles. And when you've got, we've got sort of 800-900 people working for us now. That's 800-900 lives that are, struggling with all sorts of everyday stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things we did a lot of was over promoting people who had one great skill set. So they had a great Nigel skill set. Who they could work a room. They could be an incredible shift runner.
You guys come a bit closer to that. Sorry, boys. I didn't. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, they could be an incredible runner, with people, and they could do the thing that we wanted Nigel to do, where he could, help get people, in the palm of his hand by the end of the evening. Were they a good general manager? Manage a team of 15 people
He was
effectively.
No.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's really hard to find someone who's got it all. It's really, really difficult.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I mean, I was definitely guilty of that.
I know.
I kind of, in a way, it definitely, and it's not, it wasn't great for honest, but it was worse for the person. I think about some of the people that were great waiters or shift managers, like pushed into being more, that weren't ready. We didn't have the training plans in place. I didn't do my bit in terms of giving them the basic tools. Before you set someone off and go do it, you've got to give them the basics. I don't think we were always so good at that. And I can think of one or two people that end up just having to go or leave, and it's not their fault, and you've done wrong by them. So I can list at least 10 straight away that way.
So that's you. They've been really good, and then they've almost instead of going from level 1 to 2 to 3, you've gone from level 1 to 4, kind of in terms of.
In a way, yeah. I mean, we've gone through the ranks. I mean, the industry is always going to be. It's always a quick place to get promoted, and generally the people who are great waiters, who are loud, who are extrovert, make their way up the ladder very quickly in this industry, which is an issue. I think the introverts as well. Nigel, we talk about Nigel a lot, but this introverts can run a great shift. They don't have to be telling jokes on the door and running around making everyone laugh all the time, but they can still create an incredible shift. People have fun and enjoy it. So I think I probably created, I'm an extrovert, quite an extrovert, so I think I probably created an environment where good shift management and management was quite an extrovert thing to do. Nice. That's probably a mistake. Well, definitely a mistake. But this is, I think there'll be other industry people listen to this game. There's no promotion thing that goes on in our industry. We often do it out in security because we know if we don't promote people, they're going to leave, particularly English people who are like, it's your point, don't really see it as a career. They want to be the next manager, and you kind of indulge them and all that. So, definitely about that. It is a challenge, but I'd still say that internal promotion is the way to go. Mostly, not 100%. You need to bring in some other ideas and objective ideas at that level every now and again. But I think if you can internally promote, you generally get. But you've got to do it well. I think is the message.
So hospitality is so difficult. I always get the word wrong. It's cyclical. Cyclical?
Yeah. Well, what are you trying to say before I tell you what I'm trying to say? Cycle.
Cyclical.
Cyclic, yeah.
It's relevant to the sentence you read there.
Hospitality is cyclical from a employment perspective. Like, you rarely work in a job in hospitality for more than 5 years. Rarely. You do, it does happen, obviously. I've always, Wetherspoons, there's one amazing fact about Wetherspoons, I'm going to get it wrong, but their general manager tenureship is obscene. It's something like 12 years. I remember reading ages ago. I was like, you must be doing something right. But for most people, it's because there's so many options, like so many other restaurants, so many new brands popping up. It's like, oh, I'm going to do my 5 years there, and now I'm going to do 3 years there, and I'll do 2 years there, and then just keep moving around. Like, it's really hard to really get your teeth into a position, and then for them to stay. I think that's when you do end up over promoting, don't you, and making potentially some wrong decisions.
Google is a great Google example. I've been misquoting it, but I read somewhere that Google had this issue a few years back, and they kept promoting all their top coders into middle management roles. It was like the next progression, and they were all just like at the risk of really generalizing coders, they were all like geeky coders who were like, I don't want to talk to other human beings.
Yeah,
like
I want to just code.
I want to sit on a laptop with my headphones in and code the shit out of something, right? And they were turning them all into managers, and they were rubbish at it, so they'd all leave. So Google, like, this is nuts. We're like internally promoting, losing all our best coders, and we still haven't sorted out the mid-management positions, right? So there's something there around. We tried to create a few sideways steps in Honest. We created the Osh Master and the Grill Master, didn't we? Where it's like, you can earn a bit more money, you can have a bit more status as a waiter. We call it old school hospitality, Osh, as a waiter and a grill, but you don't have to maybe you don't want to be a sous chef or a shift manager. So you can earn a bit more money, a bit more status, and do an almost sort of sideways, sort of diagonal up move,
So wait, so what's your definition of old school hospitality? Like within
pretty much everything we've just been saying for the last half an hour, I just didn't actually say the words. So and the Nigel stuff, basically, this idea that, try and create a connection with a human being, like human customers are humans first, and the room, that kind of thing.
So this book, this Will's book's really good. So he says service is black and white, and hospitality is color. I think that's like a really, and he talks about that connection. How do you, as you've got way bigger, like, so for example, I went to one in Tooting last Friday. On my ones, it was unreal. Just sat there early Friday afternoon. Yeah. Unbelievable food. The girl served me. She was like super smiley, super friendly. How do you get that honest colour and that honest uniqueness when you've got 40 fucking sites? So I'm in Manchester. Do you see what I mean? Like that. As you get bigger, you're the employee on the ground, if you want to call it that, or serving, is so far from.
You should ask. Sorry, I'm going to jump in there. This is a mistake that I'm going to give you some feedback now, and we're the same. You only interview people like us on these stuff. You should ask her. No one ever asked her, because I'd love to know why.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because I think I can sit here and try and craft. I don't even know who you're talking about. Said her name, and there's a chance to shoot. I don't know if I might not have even met her. How bad's that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I can try and craft an answer for you, which will basically regurgitate the last 45 minutes we've just been talking about. But you should ask her. It's probably Adam, her manager. He's the one that should probably get all the credit, because whatever he's doing, and he's been with us a long time, and he was an internal promotion, and he seems to be doing really well from everything I can hear.
Yeah, massively.
He's down there. So if she's smiling at you and you felt great when you spoke to her, then you should ask her, and you should ask him.
I would say I totally get your point, and I agree with it. And one thing we haven't touched on at all yet is pride, which again is a cheesy one. But if you, let's say, from us, you came and you had a great burger. That burger, we have tried to make that burger as good as we physically can. And that's my job. I have to make sure that we go for a 10 out of 10 food experience. If centrally we decided to make that burger less quality, but we make more money from it, which is the well-trodden path of expansion. And, you start up here. Apparently McDonald's in the 50s was the fucking nuts. And, they used to cook their chips in beef fallow and in beef tallow, and their burgers were like, proper traditional smash burger. I'd love to try a McDonald's from the 50s compared to today. Just see the difference in it. And that's most brands. Try and when there's one, it's the best. Try and when there's 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, they're just different. So I think, and that, you go on that transition, right? And for us as a business, we've got 40 restaurants, which feels like a lot, but still a drop in the ocean, really. You got like Five Guys have got 150, and they've only been in this country for feels like a blink of an eye. But you've got to give people food to be proud of, I think, is where it starts. And I feel we'll probably look at it from more of a...
No, it starts there. God, you can't serve shit food.
Yeah, if you serve shit food and you make food that... You make decisions that impacts... it's like a conscious decision to reduce the quality of your food, then I think the whole house of cards is just fragile. It just doesn't really work.
Totally. I think, I keep coming back to this, plumbing. We had a people director who... She hit me with this hammer blow not so long ago, years back. She's basically said that culture is the plumbing that goes on in your business. It's what happens to people every day. It's not what you write in the manual. All this stuff I've already said.
Sorry, culture is plumbing.
Yeah, it's the way the business is set up, right? It's not what you say. It's actually how the structure of the business and where the responsibility sits and where the pressure comes from. And I went on this mad journey with it where I felt like, this waitress's name in Tooting. The honest culture to her is whatever she thinks we think is important, or Adam maybe thinks it. Whatever she thinks, Adam thinks is important, and that probably indirectly is whatever we think is important, right? So
Right.
you look around, you go, well, what's going to get me in trouble tomorrow? What's going to get me a pat on the back? That's it. That's it. And she, I hope, knows, she's probably just, let's just be honest, she's probably just a really nice human being, right? And that's 90% of it, let's be honest. Like if you just, I used to just employ, when I was employing my own team, for honest, in Brixton, I used to just employ someone. I go, well, I just don't think you've got a bad bone in your body. I mean, think about that team, like Charlie, Ellie, Bronwyn. Do you remember that? Bobby? Like, you just think it's not possible for you to upset anyone, and we'll teach you everything else.
Yeah.
So she's probably that. So let's not get too carried away here. But like, what, you ask yourself, what's going to get me in trouble tomorrow? What's going to get me a pat on the back? And, am I going to get a bigger pat on the back if I have the highest average spend in the restaurant, or if I get really great customer reviews? These kind of, I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but like, depends the KPIs you set. That's culture. It's not what you write in the manual. I keep saying it. It's like, it's the KPIs you set. Like, what's important? Like, that tells someone in the business, it tells Adam what we think's important, right? The things we measure. So
It's I listened to the Stephen Bartlett podcast with the Airbnb founder on Real Podcast. He says culture is the most important thing you'll ever design, because it's the engine that builds everything else. And it's like what you've said, that's just, in my eyes, is what you're saying about this plumbing. It's like you can have it written down on a fucking board and everyone can clap their hands around it, but it's much more entrenched and much deeper than that.
It's so hard to define as well, right? And I think that's when you say, like, yeah, we've got our mission statement or our manual, but it doesn't mean shit if you don't breathe it and exist in it. And that's where it becomes really different. And that we've massively struggled with that. With we've had lots of different very senior people come and go, honest, over the last 10 years, all coming with a different mindset, or they want to put their imprint on the business, on their department, start something afresh. Like, all those things can be really difficult because they just throw a kind of spanner in an existing culture.
That's interesting. The well, just one more thing on culture, then we'll move on. I find it fucking fascinating.
Me too, man. This is like right up my street.
Do you know have you heard of Who Gives a Crap, the toilet roll? Yeah. So I interviewed the founder of that the other day. Super interesting guy. And I was like, so how do you, but kind of similar question to ask you guys. It's like, how do you find your Nigel, or like, can you teach that? And he goes, mate, we're not looking for culture fit. Like, culture fit is really dangerous, because then you create almost like Russian dolls, right?
Cult.
Yeah, cults. Yeah.
I've been accused of that in the past.
Yeah.
Is cult and culture linked words?
Cult.
Could they?
They probably are. There's definitely something in that.
Like it.
Sorry, he was about to say something really profound.
No, it really wasn't. It gave me some time to think. But he was talking about culture, not culture fit, culture ad. So he was saying, because they've got a mad setup, like they're all remote, like that whole business is remote. They've got people in like the Philippines, they've got people in Australia, people in London, and he says we're always looking for people to bolster something new onto the business. I'd love to know where you sit on that, because you said you had some people come in and they try and put their stamp down, which can sometimes be like, again, that can eviscerate culture. I've seen that firsthand with, like, you have people come in and it's just like the wrong sport. I always say it's like a rugby coach trying to teach cricket.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad, it's just a different sport. How do you navigate that potentially tumultuous territory? It's like you want new people coming in with fresh ideas, but you don't want it to rip up the status quo, or not, maybe the status quo is the wrong way of saying it, but the thing, if that makes sense.
I think there's loads of stuff in there. I don't know if that's all cultural. There's definitely an insecurity with sort of heads of department, mid-manager, exec level, where they come in, they feel like to do stuff to show that, to prove their money, big salaries. And I get it. There's this sort of shit, I've got to prove myself. Like, and actually I just love it when they don't do anything for 6 months. Just chill, man. I was with the Pizza Pilgrams guys the other day. Our head of talent has kind of, far a few of the businesses ended up there. Ollie's at Pizza Pilgrams now. And I was saying to him, I've just said to him, like, just 6 months, man, just be in the restaurant, go wherever you want. Just go wherever you want. Spend a month in the academy, go and work a shift with this guy, hit all the restaurants. Like, we don't want you to do anything for 6 months. And I was like, it's so refreshing. Like, I love that. Like, so there's definitely an idea of, like, just come in and figure stuff out before you start adding stuff or changing stuff. Like, I don't know. I didn't listen to the Who's a Crap guy, but there's a lot of, it sounds nice. I'd want to hear a lot more. It sounded a bit bullshitty if I'm honest. Like, we all say these nice things about, like, it's ad and we don't do this, we do that. It's like, I don't know. it's what I'd like. You talk to the staff and find out. Like, talk to the waitress and tooting. Talk to somebody who works at Who Gives a Crap. Holy crap! What is it?
Do you guys speak to how do you guys speak to the waitress and tooting, or how do you get that feedback on the ground as like leaders, I suppose?
I used to a lot. I've stepped back a bit from it, so I don't do so much of the day to day anymore. But yeah, certainly until that move, I basically spend my whole week just in and out of restaurants all the time. Just constantly, if you don't know someone, and this is something we've seen with some execs in the past, isn't it? That they're good at their jobs, but they struggle to walk into a restaurant and just introduce themselves to someone they don't know.
Yeah,
I know you both really value it, don't you? Just like go into a restaurant, and if you don't know someone, there's this awkward from my head, it's like, no, just say, hey man, Phil, what's your name? It's okay not to remember someone's name. There's like 900 staff. Okay.
We've had exec members in the past who would pay for their bill because they didn't want the kind of awkwardness of saying, oh, by the way, I work in head office. And like they say that, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're meant to go in there. I mean, fair, but it is. I don't get it very often anymore, but used to be able to go into some restaurants and they might not recognize who you are. And then you're like, cool, I might be able to get a genuine experience. Because when I walk into a restaurant now, because of workplace, basically, and we're just plastered all over the workplace and
it's hard.
Induct training videos and stuff like that. You walk in, everyone knows who you are straight away. But yeah, when I'd heard that from senior people who work for us, they were almost too afraid or just couldn't be bothered to actually speak to someone in our business and get to know them and have a 5-minute conversation with them. I was like, fucking hell, man, that's something wrong with that.
Yeah. I've got one last culture story. Sorry, this is off. Because it's one of the greatest examples of what influences culture I've had a long time. And I won't name the business or the person, but I was chatting to someone and they were talking about how the culture had completely changed the business. They'd been at a long time, loved it. The culture was always really vibrant, lively, human. We wanted all that, we wanted that interaction. It was a QSR brand, counter service. She's like, she used to love it. It was this, and you could be yourself. And then she said, you could feel it starting to change, and she couldn't quite put her finger on it. And then she told me this story, and I was like, well, it's that, because she was like, they brought in desserts, right? Which is fine. There's no issue with desserts. But they displayed the desserts. They wanted to sell them. They used to put them in front of the, so they displayed them on front of the counter, but they had to put them in like a cabinet that sat on the counter. So now the eye level was almost shifted a little bit. And she was like, it just like felt like the connection between me and the customer had completely gone because of this new cabinet that was in the way on this point. And I was like, that is the greatest example of what really affects culture I think I've heard in a long time. Like, they didn't change the manual. They didn't change what they wanted. They changed the physical environment so you can no longer look a customer in the eye properly, or you had to sort of peek over, right? If you were a certain height.
That just sounds like a fucking stupid idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was a great idea. I don't know if it improves the business average spend, but you could say, if you're being cold, really cold analytical about it, you'd say they prioritize average spend and an extra part of the meal for an interaction, and this is where, tappy screens and all this kind of stuff, like it changes the culture in the business, right? And I was like, that is the greatest thing I've heard in a long time around culture. Like, it's that. So how many of those little things, like when there's this like incongruence is my favorite word. We keep dropping in there.
I don't know what that means.
Is there a difference? Is there a gap between what you say and what's actually happening in the business? And I would challenge, and because I did this, and honest, certainly we're not perfect even still, of course. I would say that if a lot of people looking at who are interested in culture looked at what they've written in their book and some of the stuff that their guys then interact with on a day-to-day basis, and I guarantee you there'll be some incongruence there. There'll be some contradictions. This was what our people director said to me about the plumbing. She was like, sounds good, good, Phil. Like, she came to me and Tom's, we used to do Honest Day. All the new staff would meet us after a month. We talked to them for the whole afternoon about the story, and we were like really pumped by it, and we usually got a good reaction. But she was, yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. Have you read the policies that you've got? And I was like, no one fucking reads the policies. What are you on about? And literally, I'm not joking. I think I'd just taken the ones from will remain nameless, from a well-known chain restaurant, and just taken their name out and put ours on it. I was like, it's a fucking policy. It's like what to do when you go on a holiday, on an overnight trip with Honest, and blah, 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 right? It's like, it's policies. And she was like, read it tonight and give me a call when you read it. Have a glass of wine tonight and read through it. So I did. I sat down. I got about 3 pages in. And I was like, holy fuck, we hate our staff. Like, our policies didn't sound like us. It was like written like we can't trust a single person. Like, it was stuff like, if you get the internet, but for more than half an hour, you have to pay for it. And if you go for an overnight stay, you can have £5 for breakfast. £5 for breakfast. Like, all these things and these policies. And she was like, I know loads of people don't read this. So don't worry, it's not like a burning house right now. But I came to Honest Day and I felt pumped. And then I read your policies and I felt completely deflated. And I was like, oh my God. And that's just one example of incongruence.
On that note, the Danny Mayer's got a quote, which language creates culture. And it's like what you've written in that manual book to begin with is, as you say, it's like when you're small, it's like, fuck it, I'll nab it off that, and no one reads that. But as you get bigger, it's like the language is so important, and it's the way things are done. I want to move on to, kind of sidestep into food now. What was it 2011? When was it? I know you were like down in Brighton.
Yeah, probably 2010, like early 2010, when we actually started the Honest Eating Co.
And what you took the path of most resistance with making the fries, right?
Oh yeah,
or like the chips.
Yeah,
like I remember everyone was saying like, well, everyone said just fucking buy them, right? Like why that is so hard. Why did you take the path of most resistance when there was probably an easier, more scalable way?
Bohemi, our beloved sponsor, are helping build the fastest growing challenger food and drink brands. Look, if you're a small brand just starting out and need your first indie stockist, your first 100 stockists to wholesale, Bohemi are the platform to categorically speed that up. But if you're a big brand wanting to get bigger, Bohemi are also insane. They make field sales marble smooth, silky slick. They're just epic. Ollie's been on this podcast twice actually. They saw a 29% uplift in sales when using Bohemi to check major malt listings availability. Insane. 29% uplift by downloading an app. Insane. Lucky Saint, my boy Aaron Duff, who's coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, he uses it to manage a team of 30 people, and Lucky Saint have unlocked 500 draft listings by using Bohemi. Look, you've got to get involved with this stuff. It's absolutely insane, and it will categorically change your life. It's just the sickest platform. I use it all the time at Islands. Hi guys, super quick one. So excited. Look, for years I've been badgering on about Hungry the podcast. You're probably bored to death. Thanks for putting up with me. But Hungry is also an agency, and we look after one amazing brand called Islands Chocolate. We've had a great time over the year. We've won listings at a load of wholesalers. We've won Milk and More. We've got our first grocery listing coming very soon, which is very sick. But what I'm thrilled to announce is Hungry is merging with HC Consulting. My boy Harry Clark and his wonderful team, he's an absolute G. They do brand strategy, new business and account management. But why I really love working with Harry and why we've got on so well over the last couple of months is Harry was actually the founder of the boozy ice-lolly brand Pops. So he's been in the trenches, he's grafted his face off, he's had the sleepless nights, he's had the turmoil, he's had the triumph, he knows what it is to be a founder, he is a founder. And he's got a proven track record in grocery and out of home. Holy moly dips, the gut stuff, Savile drinks, Remio gelato. So if you're a brand and you're stuck, you're looking for like new business help, you're looking to scale, drop us a message, we'd love to chat. Thank you so much. Back to the old episode.
Felt very firmly, but both of us, like we disagree on all sorts of shit, but on the really important things we're always very aligned on. If you're going to go to a burger and chips restaurant, and they're the two pillars of that restaurant, how can one of them be available in a fucking cash and carry or in Sainsbury's? And it's like, it's just lazy. And it is, like, we were totally naive being like, we'll just fucking make it ourselves. And we used to, like, in the very early days, we were triple cooking these bad boys. We were like,
that's culture, by the way, not to drag it back into culture.
Yeah,
but
we were just like,
you just say that to anyone who joins us, and they get an instant flavour for what it's like to work on it straight away. Just hearing him say that, it's great, isn't it?
Time.
It's fucking great.
But it's good in terms of like the 3 out of 5 or the 5 out of 5. Like we were gunning for a 5 out of 5 experience, and it's great because potato is incredibly difficult to manage all year round. Like you've got dozens of varieties, you've got weather, you know how that can impact your variety, all these different variables you've got to deal with. So I get it. Like it's so much easier to just buy a frozen chicken, and they've done all the hard work, and they've, you know, McCain's have got a £50 million factory, and they can bust out, you know, thousands and thousands of tons of product. It's really hard, but we were like, we're called Honest Burgers. We want our food to be memorable. We don't want it to be boring. We're going to make it ourselves. It's very
personality.
simple.
You always used to say to me, I love this line, like, it's not that for McCain frozen chip isn't tasty. It's fine.
Yeah, it's like, salty, it's fatty, it's crunchy. It cooks like, you know, 3 minutes every time.
But it's the same everywhere you go. And I think we were like, no, man, like our chips have got to have personality. They've got to be a bit different. And man, we got some 1 out of 5s, didn't we, on chips for sure? Like,
yeah, we fucked it loads of time. We took like.
I'm going to check on my son quickly.
Go for it,
you
mate.
keep rolling?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
It's half term. I've got my 8-year-old on the iPad. So I'll be back.
When we first started to learn how to make chips, honestly, it felt like a time where Google wasn't a thing, and it obviously was, but we just didn't research as well as we could have done. So we were just doing everything kind of on a whim, and we were buying potatoes from the guy opposite us in the market, and they're Lovers potatoes, and they're a good potato. And we were just doing a method that was working, and everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden it just stopped working, and we had like. This is a true story, honestly. We had a very busy restaurant, only in Brixton at that time. But we had 2.5 or 3 hour waits for tables. We had this prep kitchen on Somerleyton Road in this. It was like an abandoned industrial estate. It was like something out of fucking Resident Evil, and we were making chips out of there. And the problem is we didn't realise what was changing. But that's what I was saying. There's so many variables when it comes to potatoes. One day our chips were just shit. They just went brown and soggy, and everything that we were doing that was working really well had stopped. And I remember this moment. I'm on my knees in the kitchen, and we had this really lovely guy called Rob Hope Johnson who was making rosemary salt in our prep kitchen. And he comes over, and we had a fucking queue out the door, and all these people. And I had this big stack of prepped potatoes and prepped chips ready to go. And I was like, we're going to serve shit chips. Like, either we close the restaurant or we just serve shit chips. And Rob came in, he saw look on my face, and I was just fucking like dying on this floor. And he said, what's up, man? I was like, oh man, our potatoes are fucked. I don't know what's going on. Like what worked last week isn't working now. And I said that I was like, I just need some kind of like potato, like biologist or like a potato scientist, someone who really knows the thing or two about potatoes. And he was like, oh mate, you should have told me. My dad works for Walker's Crisps. It's exactly what he does. He literally goes round. He works with PepsiCo, and he literally would go around the farms that PepsiCo buy their spuds from for Walkers, and tells the farmer how to grow the right variety in the right season, and what happens when there's a drought, when there's a flood, and blah blah blah. And we went deep, but the kind of impetus for us to make a homemade chip was always there, and that was because homemade chips taste better when they're good. And obviously when they're bad, you've got to roll with the punches. And our chips, they do go like that. They ebb and flow throughout the year. Sometimes I can get a portion, I'm like, that is the best fucking chip I have ever eaten in my life. And sometimes we might get an 8 out of 10 or even a 7 out of 10. But that's what happens when you deal with real food. Like if you want something that is, a genuine real ingredient, that you're not making it in. There's no scientist that's got involved or a lab that's got involved to stabilize it. Like, you will get ebbs and flows with it, but we take that on the chin and kind of embrace it.
It's almost like what I like about learning from you guys is you're okay as long as you're doing the right thing that aligns to your values. You're okay with some things being a little bit off. So whether it's the person having their extra thing of that Brighton hazelnut booze, or like the potatoes being slightly
you can't
off.
get pissed on shift. I mean, that's
I know, but there's these little things where it can go wrong, but you'd rather it be, as you say, this 3 out of 5. Don't be the 3 out of 5. I fucking love that. Yeah. What So what with the actual burger itself is now obviously you've got Shake Shack, Five Guys. There's a whole smorgasbord of different burger chains now. But back 2010, 2011, what was the why behind burgers? Like what was there Byron then? Was there
I hadn't heard of Byron when we started that.
Yeah, Byron was going. We basically before we even decided on burgers, me and Phil just went for a beer saying we want to do something together. And the reason for that is we'd worked in Riddle and Fins and we knew each other's work ethic, and we got on, and it was just like, we neither of us were particularly busy at that stage in our life, right? It was kind of like now or never. And I say this all the time. If you've got an idea, just get on with it. Yeah. Don't procrastinate. If you're a young person listening to this and you've got an idea, just fucking do it, because it'll only get harder to do the older you get. But we were like, yeah, let's do it. Like, arrogance of youth. We went straight in. We pulled, $5,000 between us. He wants to do fish and chips. I want to do burger and chips. Absolutely no reason other than I quite like eating burgers and I thought it'd be easy. Like there was no like crystal ball, London's about to explode, blah, blah, blah.
We didn't know any
We
of
were
that.
just like, everyone loves fucking burger. Like you do. And I do love eating with my hands is the one thing.
Yeah.
I love eating food when you eat with your hands. You just have an
Street food,
instant,
man.
you
It's got
have an
soul.
instant connection with it that you cannot get with a knife and fork.
So true. So true.
But my wife
But we don't
says,
give forks a standard in Honest to this day.
yeah, which pisses off our staff.
I think they-
all the time.
and I think
so
they-
many
I think
people
they
go,
actually do
"Try
do
and
it."
fork with this now," and you're like, "Ugh."
I've been so belligerent on that point, by the way. I'm like, please. I remember we opened in Chiswick, so I'm just going to deviate for a second. First reasonably middle class area we'd opened, I think, and everyone was asking for bloody forks with their burger. And the staff were like, please, we just give them a fork. I was like, fuck, no. I don't need a fucking fork to eat this burger.
I hadn't thought of that, but it is. The closer you eat the food with street
Yeah,
food, it's a connection to your soul.
Mate,
Like, it
eating
really is.
should be quite an intimate experience. Like you're literally putting something in your body for 24 hours and then getting rid of it.
hours.
Like it should be, yeah, that's how long it takes to digest, mate.
Depends how much coffee you have.
Read a fucking book. Yeah.
Shit.
But it isn't, sadly. People just treat it as fuel, right? It's literally just something to keep you going. But I do genuinely think eating with your hands is great. So that we decided on burgers and chips. I was a student at the time, so I was generally just making like cooking lots for my mates. But again, we never thought about opening a restaurant. I think that's the one thing, very good point to stress. Back then, restaurants were never on the cards for us. It was our goal was Glastonbury. We wanted to be at Glastonbury. We wanted to be next to the main stage and serve 10,000 burgers in a weekend. That's what we wanted.
I had someone had said to me they'd heard of or done it themselves. I forget now, and made like $100,000 in sales just from one weekend in Glastonbury. And I was like, cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and burgers are shit at festivals. Like,
I know, but then we realised that burgers don't need to be good at
Yeah.
festivals. Food doesn't need to be good at festivals. You want it quick, and it can be very expensive. Anyway, that's
it's
what we.
expensive. And it's shit. That's the thing. It's expensive.
It's getting better now. There's lots of like foodie festivals that do a lot more.
You
But
also
yeah,
need
back
about
then,
50 grand as well.
yeah, this was years ago. This would have been like 12, 13 years ago. But yeah, we just wanted to do food that we both enjoyed, and then Phil very much the kind of people culture. He was going to be front of house. I was always going to be the food side of things, and I don't think we did discuss that, but I was kind of
naturally fell into it. I was always a bit more interested in ops than people than you.
and I was always really into my food, and had learned to cook at uni. Never worked in the kitchen though, but then just enjoyed eating and enjoyed cooking.
You're a better. I don't mind saying. I've said it many times. You're a much better cook than me. I like cooking, but he's got. There's a difference between liking to cook and being able to cook. Which I could say I would, but then there's like got like that next little bit of like flair of just knowing some stuff. Just a little bit of extra something he's got with the way he cooks.
Yeah.
fair play. compliment of the day there, she's.
You finally admitted that 13 years later.
So what sort of stuff were you cooking at uni? Like where did that
I mean,
Tell him the truth.
begin to bubble?
Beef Wellington. No. And you joke. I used to go around.
Where did you go to uni?
No, exactly. No. Mate, I was not a rich student at all. I just had time. So I would go, we'd have mates around, and it'd be one of the few nights we wouldn't be getting pissed or going out. I'd say to everyone, how much money have you got? And it would be, some people would have a £5, some would have £6, some would have £3. And I'd just say, cool, give it to me. I'm going to go cook something. And I had some howlers. I tried a beef Wellington with a piece of topside. It was fucking disgusting. But you can actually make incredible meals for not that expensive if you've got the time to go for it. So yeah, I had this moment, and this genuinely was like as close to an epiphany as I think I've ever had in my life, where it was Freshers Week. I was in Sainsbury's on Lewis Road in Brighton, which is not a very nice place. And I basically had never cooked a thing in my life. And I'd had my parents are divorced, and both my mums are amazing cooks. And I'd eaten so much food from them, but never taken anything in on how to make it. And I remember this first day when I was trying out to fend for myself. I didn't even have any pans in the kitchen, I had nothing. And I was like, fuck, if I don't learn to cook now, I'm just going to eat shit food. And it was that simple. The mindset for me was like, I must learn so I can eat nice food, because I'm not going to not eat nice food. And that was that. But we were cooking all sorts. We did end up, I think, luckily the timing, when we decided to do business together was I was making lots of burgers on barbecues in the beach in Brighton and putting all sorts of shit in them, which, you know, I didn't. I think I'd watched a Gordon Ramsay video and he was like, ketchup and mustard and onion and egg and breadcrumbs. And I was like, cool, fucking do all this. And then we tried a burger that was just chuck steak, minced chuck steak. And I was like, that tastes so much better than any other burger I tried.
You should get Gordon Ramsay on it.
What hopefully one day. I mean,
You had Phil Howard, didn't you?
we had Paul Ainsworth.
Oh, he seems like such a
He's a legend,
guy.
yeah.
I love his restaurant.
I've met him, actually.
I interviewed have you heard of Hexclad frying pans?
Yeah.
He's Gordon Ramsay's business partner. I interviewed the founder of that. His name's Danny Weiner. Really interesting guy. And he was saying, I was like, oh, what did you learn from Gordon Ramsay? And he was a bit like saying what you guys were saying in terms of when you're suddenly looking after that many people, it's like, how do you deal with that? And I suppose it teased me up quite nicely. But one of the things you said on your podcast, which I thought was really interesting, was this kind of either ambient anxiety of just having so many people's livelihoods to look after. Plus, you know, you've both got kids. I'd love to talk about that because I don't think it's something that not all founders necessarily talk about. But how do you deal with that when, like, you go to bed at night looking after your family, but there's also this much bigger, honest, I sometimes think family is a bit wanky as a phrase, but like the entity that you've got to look after as well. Like how do you navigate that?
I mean, yeah, it's not easy, but it's kind of, you can't let it weigh on you, I don't think. There were times, I mean, during COVID, that was fucking rough. I remember, you know, when we realised that we were going to have to shut all the restaurants, and I didn't even know what furlough meant. I'd never heard that word in my life.
I think anyone had.
And then there was a period in between closing and before furlough was announced. I think it was like 5 days, something like that. Yeah, and I think they talked about furlough in Paris, in France, and mentioned that the French government were doing something around it. So I was like, maybe. But I remember, I mean, we were very honest, and I was really proud of the way we handled that situation. We didn't fire everyone on Zoom or anything like that. We just said, we've got enough money in the bank to last for 5 weeks. And after that, this, you know, all bets are off. I think that's what we said. And everyone who heard
we can cover all your wages.
Yeah, we'll cover all your wages, and and for 5 weeks, and then we'll, you know, hopefully we'll have a solution by then. And I remember that everyone really appreciated our honesty.
I've had people tell me that we hired people, and I've met people that were on roommates of other people. There was a girl that worked for us. She joined us because she worked somewhere else, and the guy was listening to the live Zoom that we did with Brian and the others talking about that. And she overheard us saying, and she was like, holy shit. And I think her business had done like the opposite. I was like, holy shit. And she said to me, she was like, the reason I applied to Honest because I heard what you guys were saying to my mate. I was sat off camera next to him in the living room as he was hearing the plan. So yeah. Like
that was for anyone in the world, really. That was a fucking weird time, but
that was stressful.
I remember that one was, I probably felt like I've never had trouble sleeping my whole life. I can always sleep.
Same.
And during that period, I would just be conscious, like waking up in the middle of the night, just like, oh, what the fuck are we going to do now?
Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah, I'm the same. You know, there is, like, I feel like I can, the honest answer. And
give me the honest answer, yeah.
Like, I just don't think about it. Like, and I don't
anymore, I don't think.
And that means, like, well, no, ever. Like, I can't think of a night, like, but that, I really care about our people, and hopefully I've demonstrated that on this podcast, and certainly in my career I've demonstrated this. I feel like I can say this out loud. Like, really we try and do right by people. Like, it's the most important thing. If I'm working with another business now, first thing I say to them is, do you give a shit about the quality of the food? Do you want to look after your people? If you don't, I'm not interested. Like, but I don't know if I'm incapable of worrying about stuff that I can't control.
That's a pretty good trait to have.
I know, I didn't have to try. Like, it's like, so, you know, I know I'm in control of a lot of things that Honest stands for. Or certainly used to be heavily involved. And so I'm not saying it's not on me. What am I saying? I don't know. I can't tell you I've had many, many sleepless nights. A couple around COVID, and that's probably it. Like, I really haven't.
Oh my God, I am so excited. It feels like Hungary is finally swimming in the big leagues. I can't believe this. It's absolutely mental. But delighted to announce that Big Fish, yes, Big Fish, are partnering the podcast. Perry's been on the podcast 3 times. Listeners absolutely love it. Some of our most downloaded and cherished episodes of all time. But Big Fish are behind literally so many brands in your cupboard, in your weekly shop. Charlie Bigham, Year Valley, Tyrrell's, Clipper Tea, Goo, Rana. I mean, mate, the list is longer than the River Nile. But they also share risk and invest in brands that they really believe are a force for good. They're brands that they believe are going to be the next big thing, like Howder, the snack that gives back. But even more exciting news, Big Fish want to speak to the next wave of small challenger food and drink brands that are destined for big things, the raconteurs, the movers, shakers, buccaneering visionaries. So look, if you want to speak to Big Fish and just have a chat, get your brand in front of them, then drop me a message. My mate Louis from Local Beer, Amazing Beer, was in their office, aka La Fish Bowl, last week, chatting to Perry, Freddie and the Big Fish crew. So drop me a message if you would like to speak to them. Suppose if you know that you're doing right by your values and as everything you've or trying to build that culture, then there's, as you say, there's only so much you can do once that, I know you switch off per se, but like once that door's shut or the staff have turned off the lights, there's only so much, you can't do anything else. And I suppose that allows you to sleep easy in some regards.
Yeah, I felt like we did everything we possibly could, and then Rishi comes along and announced furlough, and it was like, okay, well now we know where we stand. But yeah, I felt a bit sorry for some of that. Well, maybe not sorry is the right word, but I felt for those businesses that went a bit earlier and sort of ditched half their staff overnight, and then 5 days later were asking them all to come back because furlough was announced. So I know that didn't go down with a bunch of people very well. You can imagine.
What you said on your podcast is we're both wildly different. But what I find interesting is you've also got this, like, you clearly gel, and there's, you've been in business for a long time, and there's this sort of, that podcast is jokes, you can see there's good banter between you two, right? But I'd love to explore these differences, and I'm obsessed with this, like how 1 + 1 = 3, or like 1 + 1 can equal 5 if you get the right combination, right? And so say, I don't know who wants to go first on this, but say you were like a burger. It's a bit of a fucking random question, right? But say you were...
This isn't random, you thought this one out.
Yeah.
You planned this out.
Here's what I made earlier. If you were a burger, like what would you be?
I haven't been asked that before. What would I be?
What do you mean, like the ingredients?
So there's 2 ways to take it. So yeah, I asked this to the guy who did Callum Franklin, the
burger.
I didn't know. I asked about pies. Yeah. I said, if you were a pie, what would you be? Expecting him to say like, oh, the ham would be he's from Southeast London. Like the ham would be from here. The chicken would be here. He just said, 90% nervous energy. So that's how he took it. So it's however you want to take it.
Simple. I love the word simple. And I think it's got a bad rep because I think simple people, it's like, I know, but people, you sort of say something simple, it's like a massive insult, but I am pretty straightforward. Like my wife would probably disagree with that, but
simple people are great as well.
Simple, you just know where you stand. Like
simple, yeah.
I like the fact that our Honest Burger is a very simple burger. It's layered. You can taste everything that's in it. There's no like sort of cookery or chefy kind of master or anything like that. It's just simple flavors, good ingredients, and that's what Honest is built on from a food perspective. And that's what, if I was a burger, I'd have to be Honest Burger for sure. I'll take that crown, I'm afraid.
I would say the same. I think you thought we were going to say different things, didn't you?
I thought...
You look disappointed.
No. This is what's interesting doing these, is it's like you're both simple, or you've both picked this simple thing. That may be the thing that unites you.
Yeah.
But how would you say you're different then? Like how... Are you completely different? And how, when that comes together, is it like
really different? I'd explain this. Maybe I've said this to you, maybe you haven't. I've explained when we had new people join the business, sort of in senior roles. I've tried to explain what it's going to be like to work with me and Tom.
Right.
And I've said that Tom will be hard on you on the things that you do. When Tom is hard on you, he'll be hard on you for what you're doing. Like he'll look at the thing you've done, pick it up, and he'd eat it and go, "That's not good enough. You haven't done that well enough, or it doesn't look right. It's not." He'll look at the thing you've done and have a go at you, whereas I'll be harder on you for the things that we're not doing. You're not doing. Like I'm more like, why aren't we doing this? Like we should be doing that. I've heard about this, or I've heard about that. Like I want us to be here. So I'm a bit more like, I would say I'm a bit more conceptual, and you're a bit more logical and analytical, I would say, which is a good combination. I think you make it, that makes it sound like you don't disrupt, you've done some incredibly disruptive stuff in the food space that loads of businesses, I think, have copied. Right?
Such as?
I think like the special thing, the collaborations. I don't think we own collaborations, but I remember thinking at the time we were one of the first that really went out and spoke to other businesses and said, hey, we want to put your stuff in a burger or collaborate with you and do the local thing. And a lot of people do that now. And maybe we weren't the first. I'm talking to the mic to make sure I don't upset anyone.
Yeah.
Maybe we weren't the first.
I'll get a few reviews in the old comment section.
Yeah, bring it on. I'd love to know. But I feel like, so that's not to say you're not disruptive, but I think like I'm more like, why, thinking, what are we not doing, and you're very hard, you'll be hard on people when it's like, in a good way, I mean.
I think it's like,
it makes sense, yeah.
Hope has come across in this podcast. Like it is very simple in terms of when we started the business, who's people and ops, I was food. And that's
and marketing and stuff.
But it's kind of like the visual stuff, the detail, the design, the things that are tangible, I like. And I think you like the things that are much more trait-based and personality-based and behaviour-based, which is fucking hard.
Totally.
Whereas my stuff is like, food. You can touch food. You can manipulate it. You can cook it.
You can pick up and eat his thing. You can't pick up and eat culture.
A behaviour.
Yeah, that's so true.
You be a burger.
So you've just admitted that my side of the business is harder than yours. Or what side of it?
Harder for me to do because I can't do it. Yeah.
Yes, one thing you did say back on I think it was one of the podcasts, you said simple is not easy. And I thought that was a sick quote because as you say, like the word simple implies like doing less and thereby making things, it's like the easier part.
We used to always say that our food was simple. We'd be like, it's easy, it's simple, man. It's fucking, there's only like 10 burgers.
We had this epiphany together recently though, wasn't it? It was a couple of years ago. We were like, we've got to stop saying the word easy.
Yeah.
That's a complete disservice to our guys in the kitchens and on the floor who are knocking out 300 burgers in 2 hours in the city. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing.
That is not easy.
But if you compare our kitchen to say Coke, which, Coke has an infinitely more complicated menu than we do. And their kitchen has, probably 5 times the ingredients, or Wagamama was one of those. They have so much more ingredients, more stations, more things like that. But they've also got 3 times as many chefs in there. And this kitchen's probably 3 times the size of ours. Like, what we do is focused, and it should be, because you're a burger restaurant, and most people just order a bacon cheeseburger. Like, that's the best seller of any burger restaurant in the world.
Of any menu in the world.
It's a bacon cheeseburger, right? And that's what we wanted. That's why the Honest Burger is that. And obviously we've grown a little bit and we've tweaked the rest of the menu as we've grown. But we do still like to think the essence is simple, but the execution is never easy because there's a lot of shit to do. And like we said a minute ago, cooking a frozen chip, that is easy. You can. No, that's both. Cooking a frozen chip is simple. It's simple and easy. Like you could fully automate that.
Yeah.
With a robot, and it would be just dink, 3 minutes, down, up. That's that. Ours, we do cook-offs every morning. So every single time we get a new batch of chips into our restaurant, every single day they'll cook a portion of chips and work out how long it takes to cook. And it could be, depending on the variety. And this is, God's honest truth. Our cook time on chips could go up by a total cook time could be 3 minutes one season, could be 6 minutes another season. Just because of the dry matter in our potatoes and different varieties. And that is something that the chefs have to just deal with.
Yeah. I think we've sort of, again, more recent epiphanies that you sort of you can articulate your business better, I think, the longer you've been in it.
Sure, yeah.
That's a really obvious thing to say, but I always feel like honest. If I can come back to 2 things, I'm like, it should be a simple place to work. It's not going to be easy. Because I think we told ourselves it's going to be an easy place to work. We're totally setting them up for a fall. Like, it's totally unreasonable and unfair.
But I do think we fucked up with that in the past by saying, by not having a really rigorous training program. And we still, we're just about putting in a really rigorous training program because we're like, fucking easy. Look, the menu's just there. There's only that many burgers, really coleslaw and certain chips. It's easy. But actually, we want our people to know every single thing about our menu. I want them to know about regenerative farming. And we could spend days talking about that. Like, there are things that we've definitely got wrong around that simple, not easy quote, which...
See, there's another mistake. He's saying it, it's mine.
Fuck off. I said simple, not easy.
No, mistake, you just highlighted.
Good.
Wait, so you said Phil, you said it could boil down. You said honest could boil down to two things.
It should be
What
a
was the other
simple place to work, and for customers, it should be a simple place to eat. And I love that. I love the idea that a customer doesn't have to come in and do this with the menu through 5 pages and a huge wine list. It's like you're coming in, you're having a burger, and actually there's only 8 of them.
Yeah, but 10. But some people still, it baffles my mind when people will look at our menu and don't get it. I think we've got the simplest menu ever. Some people do look at it and they're just like,
yeah, but so it's simple. But what I'm learning from you is simple is hard or simple's not easy, right? Because there's a lot of on the surface it looks simple, but there's actually a lot of depth and texture. So the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, but each branch to have that sort of local feel has its own unique burger. That is really complicated.
That's not easy,
but it's simple. But it's like, oh yeah, because I walk into Tooting and it's like, what was the was Tooting is you've done like a jerk chicken? Jerk chicken. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah. So I feel like this isn't some like huge. Like Five Guys, for example, it's a small. If there's something intimate about that, looks really simple, but I bet you that's a ball ache to sort out.
We've got like 40 restaurants with 40 local suppliers. Our finance team
hate it. Yeah. So that's not fair. They don't hate it, but they would prefer. It would make their lives easier.
And they're buying, because it's only one burger in one restaurant, you're buying tiny amounts. Invoices that will be like 30 quid or something.
Do you know what I mean? Like we don't run the business from the finance department, so
What are the other? So I'm liking this theme of like doing things that look ostensibly sort of simple, if that's the right words. It's simple, but actually behind the surface, they're actually pretty complicated. So what, obviously the chips, the localized burgers per branch, what else is like looks simple, but is actually really fucking hard for you guys to bring that experience alive?
Everything.
Well, I think a lot of the stuff we talked about this morning, if you want to not give people staff scripts, a huge long list of service steps, and you're going to let them wear what they want and blah, blah, blah,
honestly, I would say like nothing we do is easy at this scale now.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not trying to kind of get the violin out, but hospitality is not fucking easy right now. Like I honestly, sometimes I like sort of drift off and think about the good old days where we just had to worry about Brexit. And it's like, we thought that was like the biggest grenade the industry had ever seen. It's like, I would do anything to just deal with fucking Brexit and the shit that the industry deals with now. So I do generally, and I think anyone listening to this who works in hospitality would probably agree that nothing is easy right now. And from a customer perspective, going in, paying for some food, eating it and walking out, that should be a simple process. But even that's quite difficult, right? When you go into a restaurant that's understaffed, or their delivery's been fucked because, there's the courier company's understaffed, whatever it is, like there's just all these layers of complication now that I don't feel like they were as big a deal 10 years ago. And now they're just constantly happening.
A lot of the fun, it feels like there's not a lot of joy at the moment in the hospitality industry. A lot of the fun stuff, seems to have been diminished, and there's a lot more stuff that we have to deal with. And I think I feel like it's starting to come back a bit, but
definitely, I think this Christmas is feeling. We've got a really nice vibe at the moment, and really great like-for-like sales. But I mean, utilities is crippling businesses. Like we signed up to a 2-year contract because at the time that felt like the right thing to do because the utilities were doing that. And I hear stories of businesses, big, branded, very successful businesses that are scaling back their rollout because they can't afford to, because their utilities are so outrageous and they're locked in for another 18 months or whatever. Like it's shit like that the government should be supporting people like that. Why should us buying gas and electric today, because we signed up to a contract 12 months ago and we tried to hedge our bets in I fucking hate this word, but unprecedented environment, and we're getting shafted, and the people who are selling us the fucking gas and electric are making so much money, even though their costs have come right down now. But because we hedged our bets, we're getting fucked.
Yeah, it's rough in terms of like a lot of our listeners. I think to relate to founders that have not like made it, but who've scaled big businesses, right? I always think as the business scales, the founder has to scale or like scale with their skill set, right? Or like change slightly. What are some of the weaknesses you've had to work on from going from like when you were that one restaurant in Brixton to 40 now? Like, what are the weaknesses you really had to hack at to
Personally,
yeah.
Being fucking immature, I think both of us. I would say I was quite immature when we started. Stubborn. We're both still stubborn, but I think you've grown, man. You've grown a lot. But I think we both have. Honestly, if you'd have interviewed us 10 years ago, we'd be very different people.
How so?
Well, we discussed earlier, like, I don't drink anymore. Like, drinking was a big part of my kind of personality. I thought it was anyway. It's obviously it's not, but back then it was. And it was it's something now where I was like, I need to take my life more seriously. I need to take my career more seriously. And God, drinking in hospitality is very easy. It can be very damaging. So yeah, I think for me that was, being far more self-aware and self-reflective is important, because when you're trying to grow a business and you've got people that depend on you, and it's an old one, but it's a goodie, like lead by example.
Yeah.
You talk about culture, like culture is fucking meaningless if your leaders aren't leading by example. Like the smallest thing and you're gone. And I hear stories about people that have been on your podcast and I'm like, really? They said that? And I'm like, honestly, they've done that? But they're like, yeah, man, fucking rock and roll. That's what founders get away with. I don't think we've been that bad. I've probably done a few silly things.
Yeah, we've done a couple of silly things. I think we realised, I think definitely at the stage of the business growing and realising that some of the stuff that we were doing wasn't fit for purpose anymore. I remember being massively behind, sort of as ops director, around trying to grow the business between I always forget now, 14 and 25. It's just a really tough phase for me. I feel like
as in 14
sites,
yeah.
The business, my ability had been outstripped by the business. The business had got bigger than my skill level at that point. I mean, I was a part-time waiter in 2009, took on a bit more responsibility in that restaurant, but was very wet behind the ears, as were you, right? And but I remember feeling like suddenly I had all these, the arrows were all sort of coming in, and it's like I didn't really have recruitment. We already mentioned training and didn't have a department for that. It was just like we were loud and we were confident and we were in the restaurants all the time, and I had people kind of whipped up a bit cultish really into like this, what it is to be honest. And actually, when you're only recruiting 5 or 10 people every month or so, it's okay. But when you're suddenly that, quadruples and everyone's different and what works for it was harder, this dilution. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here, like your impact you can have just by crashing around the restaurants and talking a game. So I
did one thing where you took over Brixton for a month, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Really learn what it's like to be a GM.
Yeah, that was
interesting. What did you learn?
Well, I guess we touched on some of it. I mean, it was a guy that had been with us a long time, and he on a night out we were pissed, and he there's probably an example of something we had to stop doing. Anyway, he came up to me. He's like, "Dude, it doesn't feel the same anymore. I've been in this 4 or 5 years."
Really, Marco?
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, Mark Brennan.
Really good, honest employee in terms of the customer stuff and that loud kind of confident extrovert kind of personality that we always used to look for. And he said to me it didn't feel right, and I kind of told him to fuck off. Basically, I was like, we were kind of mates.
Culture, right there.
Well, I'd had a couple of drinks, and I was like, "Nah, what are you talking about?" Because he wasn't being articulate. He was had a couple of drinks, and I just read it off as like, kind of drunken bravado, but it stuck with me. He said, "It doesn't feel right. It feels more like we're just focusing on the numbers, blah blah blah." So I said that to my partner Helen, and it's bothered me for about 3 days. And I realised like the only way to know really is you got to get back in there. So I went back in and managed Brixton for a whole month, like properly did it. Like I didn't just tap out at 8 o'clock at night and go home and didn't work Sundays. Like I did proper hours.
I was literally about to ask you, did you work Sundays?
I worked all the fucking time, man. I did it properly. And I kind of felt like he was right. People were getting in more trouble if they were missing 5 cans of Coke at the end of the week and if we'd lost 4 members of staff that month,
Wait, sorry, say that again. People getting in more trouble if...
Yeah, they were getting in more trouble if, there was more repercussion and more reports and more focus on us, on stock takes. And, if you're missing 5 cans of Coke, where are they? What's going on? Like this. But 4 human beings left the business that month and no one was really talking about it. Certainly not outside of the restaurant. There was no out. And this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. It's where a lot of these beliefs come from, and that I kind of audited the business. I went through everything. I was like, right, I'm going to look at all the things like, how do we express what's important in this business to the teams in the restaurants? I looked at KPIs, I looked at reports, I looked at bonuses, I looked at the training we give, And I looked at the meetings they have to come to. And I was like, well, those are the things, aren't they? Like, if you're trying to figure out what's important to these guys, well, what reports do they send me or do I have to send? What KPIs do I have to look at all the time? Or more importantly, what my bonus on, what's going to get me in trouble? And I added them all up. I found 151 things, which is already way too many. And then I put an F next to it for financial, a C next to it for customer, and a P next to it for people, because they were, depending on what sort of focus they had. And it came out like 50% of our things had F next to them. And then
Really?
30 had C, and the rest, whatever that is, 20 had people. And I was like, well, that's just off kilter. And I'm not saying you should have 80, you should be 100% P. Like, you need to have financial. And I've definitely flirted with that over time and maybe gone too far in some places. But I definitely felt like actually he's right. You know what I mean? Like, he is right. Like, no one is asking me. There's none of the reports I had to send when I was down in Brixton for a month. And I appreciate it was me, and my area manager probably was struggling for that relationship suddenly as the founder being his GM in his restaurant or whatever. Right? But yeah, the cold hard facts were that, the reports I sent on Monday, there's no report asking for what's going on with my people. No report saying asking for explanation on levers or anything like that. It was all financial and very customer focused, which is fine, by the way. I mean, loads of very successful businesses have focused on those things, but I
feel like
it's not the way we want it to be.
I feel like you seamlessly queued yourself up to talk about Pineapple Report now, surely. Use this moment. He's just launched something.
Yeah, actually, I saw that on LinkedIn, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really, I mean, Pineapple, I guess I'm fed up of, like, so I kind of feel a bit bad about saying you're holy crap, but I was talking bullshit, because I don't think he probably was, but, like, there's a lot of, and myself included, like, I've obsessed over culture for like 10 years now, and I'm studying it in a way, in part. I'm starting to really understand, like, I've been forced to do two modules in statistics. I don't know if you've ever done statistics.
Anything numbers was just, I didn't work with my brain, mate. I don't understand it.
I mean, I remember the first lecture, I was like, I don't think I can even ask a question. I don't understand the answer and not sound like I'm stupid, right? And luckily there was about 15 or 20 other people who were feeling exactly the same as me. So we created like a little dickheads group over here that had to ask like stupid questions after the lectures. But I got there in the end, and it gave me this real grounding in data and how important that is. It's not everything, but you need to have better understanding of what's going on. So for me, culture is about like what data points are out there. They give you an idea. And I'm invested in a business which really started me on this journey called Yuda, which is all about sort of knitting together everyone's people systems and creating one source of truth. And when we get that going, man, it's going to completely change the game for hospitality.
One source of truth.
Let me give you an example. So, like, we're very active in this industry. So he's going to create a bot, or we're going to try and create a bot at some point called Flight Risk. So it's all AI and automations, right?
Yeah.
He's going to call it Flight Risk. And the idea is, imagine as an operator or a people director, you could have tech that helped you set up warning signs when someone might be about to leave, rather than right now, which is like, all these people left, let's try and understand why and stop it happening again, right? That's HR right now. Here's our staff turnover. Why did those people leave? Right, what do we need to do better? Whereas if his system will go into your Roto, it will go into your HR system, your LMS system, your payroll. And because it's got all that, in each one of those systems, the most incredible data sets, but no one's then putting them together and correlating them, right? So Flight Risk might be that he will notice that when someone leaves, it's because they've done over 3 weeks in a row, over 55 hours, and they've just had a new general manager promoted for the first time, right? And those, and I'm just... But those two data points show a very clear pattern in your business that generally then you'll get a bunch of leavers. So boom, that's about to happen in here, here, and here. So you might want to go and chat to that John, Jane, and Susan.
That's mad.
I know. So all these data points are sat there right now. Like, I asked him for a bot. Sorry, as a founder, I was like, I want to be able to walk up to Reading, the door in Reading, and it to tell me who's working and a bit about them. And he was like, done. I said, if you think about that example, like the richness of that data at the moment, it's in all these systems that no one is putting together. It's like, I know, because you're in our payroll system and you're in our rota system, that you just went on holiday 2 weeks ago. It's in there. Like, we know it, right? That you just went on holiday for last 2 weeks, or that you just got promoted, or that you might have just come back from paternity leave, or whatever, right? We know this stuff about you. But now imagine if you can put that into one place where when I get within 20 yards of the door in Honest and Reading, it pings me and says, hey, Phil, Dan's working today and he's just been on holiday and he just got promoted 4 weeks ago. I can walk in and go, hey, Dan, how's your holiday?
That's not like, so I think a lot of, back to this whole
pineapple, by the way, that was you.
Yeah.
I've just done a great job of selling my main. Well, I'm an investor in it, so that's good for me.
But I think there's a huge. As you're talking, it sounds like very David Brent, but like the customer's always right? And I think so many businesses put so much focus on how do we even in this book, they're like this hospitality book. They do these things like, what is the customer doing? What is the customer doing? How can we make this moment magical? But actually, if you go upstream and say, okay, how do we sort the employee bit first? Well, not sort it out, but just have way more kind of lucid clarity on that. So when you walk into the store, you know, being bish bash bosh, that's exactly it. That's where you can set the tone, as we said right at the beginning, set the tone of the culture, and then everything else flows from that. I think that's mad. The fact you can use that's so Rory Sutherland being able to use the data to evoke the emotion, feelings.
All the data shows behaviour, right? Behaviour is usually backed up by data. Matt's favourite thing. He's going to love this when he hears this podcast. His opening line is, Amazon knows more about your employers than you do. Amazon knows more about our employers than we do. Literally, just from their buying habits. Like, they know more about the personalities and the behaviour and the desires and the kind of, the habits of our employees. Amazon knows more about our employees than Honest does, right? So just let that sink in for a second. Scary. So, but it's totally not, we can fix it. And this is what he's trying to do, and hopefully we'll be successful. But like, you know, you learn a different way to how I learn, and you'll learn a different way to how you learn. And if we can figure out those things, then instead of just sending one message to everyone, like, we have a system in workplace, and this is what Yuda's going to try and do, which is like, you get this bit of communication this way. Phil gets it as a video because he likes visual. Tom gets it as a picture because he likes to see to learn. And this guy just gets to go in and fucking do it and then reflect on it. Like, no one's segmenting according to personalities in our business. We treat everyone the same. And there's so much opportunity if we can just tap into it. And data and tech is the way in. But pineapple is slightly
different. Was pineapple? That sounds interesting.
Well, I just said
on LinkedIn as the last couple of days.
It started in all good things. I trust things that start small and kind of snowball. But this guy came to me and he's got culture consultancy and asked me if I could help him crack hospitality. Essentially, I'm doing a bit of it.
That's quite a big brief.
He didn't really say that, but like, a guy called Will Fraser, ex-Saracens rugby player, great guy. Culture consultancy, does a lot in support and education. It was like, man, I want to get into hospitality. I think we got something to offer, and I think you must get this. Like, people think we've got this huge black book of founder names, and like, if you got Phil, then got the numbers to like all the businesses we want to buy our products. And I'm like, dude, I'm a shit salesman.
And pretty good salesman, I must say.
B, the founder network doesn't work like that. Like, if we tell each other shit all the time, they wouldn't be my friends for much longer. So I can't do that. But something I think the industry needs is a benchmark for people metrics. And this was my kind of thing. I'm fed up of talking about culture and all these wishy-washy, like, it's this, we treat it this, it's that. It's actually like, we all need to talk about the same numbers, and people need to understand where they sit. And this is 10%. I'm not kidding myself. Like, we're doing the first, like, Matt is trying to do the really clever stuff, right? But what Pineapple needs to do first and foremost is give a people director in a business an idea of what good staff retention is in the industry. Or, sorry, not even good. Good is the wrong word. He knows what good is. That's the point. We don't know what good is. But I can tell you that the staff retention in the industry is 86%, right? For the last 12 months. 12-month rolling LTO is 86%.
In Honest?
No, across the industry.
Right.
With the businesses I've got in this project at the moment.
Cool.
Albeit a small sample size, but about to get a lot bigger. Now, 86%. So if I'm sat in another business, I can go, well, ours is 100% shit. We might want to focus there. Or ours is actually 50%. We're doing better than the industry. Okay, let's move on. Focus on other stuff. So that's all Pineapple is. It's 5 metrics. I'm asking businesses to join. We've had an incredible response. I launched it 2 weeks ago. I've got 170 businesses that have asked to join it. Whether they actually do, and then whether they actually give you their data, and then whether actually they'll pay the subscription, which we're going to introduce in January, to be part of this club, this community, to get the data, is another matter. So that 180 might boil down to like 10, but like, we've had an incredible amount of businesses, like some huge ones as well. Like,
and what are they trying to do? Like, I know you can't do it case by case because like over 100 of them, right? But like, what do you think are the 1 to 3, 4 things that they're trying to find out that they can't currently find out?
The 5 metrics we've got is staff retention, tenure across roles. So how long has the general manager been in role? Internal progression, 90-day turnover. So of the new people you hired, how long have them last 90 days? That's a really interesting one.
Really? Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. And the other one, which is Will's one from sport, it's a real big thing in sport, is team stability. So this idea of how long, like, you take any given Honest restaurant and add up how long each member of that team has been in that restaurant. So not how long you've been in the company. Like Phil's been in Honest for 10 years, but you moved Phil from Liverpool Street to Brixton. In this metric, my clock starts again at 0 in Brixton. So I bring a 0. So there's this thing about cohesion. And you see it in sport, all the best sports teams. Look at football, right? Brentford's a good example.
Brighton's a great example, yeah.
Yeah, and then compare that to Chelsea and Man United, right? Change the manager every 3 months, think they can buy in the talent and buy in the superstar. The superstar they're a superstar here. It doesn't mean they're going to be a superstar here. It's only not straight away. So we do this thing, there's this superstar fallacy where we think we'll just go out and buy the superstar and we'll plug them in here. And Will's got loads of amazing stats on cohesion.
Well, that's what Chelsea have done. They basically they're a team of superstars that have no idea how to merge together.
And do you know when Chelsea had their best season? When they had the transfer ban and they couldn't sign anyone.
And also they won the Champions League with Di Matteo, who was like a fucking reserve manager.
Yeah, the German team that won the 2014 World Cup, 80% of them had won the Under-17s World Cup about 8 years before that. So there's this whole thing about cohesion. Matt, bloody from Uda, is going to create the fucking cohesion bot. So imagine if you went to a rota according to that. He's like, I was telling this story, it's like, imagine if you could rota to cohesion. So you're doing a rota and it says, sorry, you haven't got enough cohesion minutes on that shift.
Cohesion.
As in, you've got too many inexperienced people in that team. They haven't worked. The people on that shift haven't worked together this much. Haven't worked together enough. So in the rugby example, this is a company called the Gain Line did this work. They worked out that you'd need to have 3,000 cohesion minutes on the pitch, I think it was, to win the league. And there's direct correlation between the more cohesion. Every time you have less than that. So the cohesion minutes is when you look at the 15 players on it's 15 in rugby, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the 15 players on the pitch, they used to add up the cohesion minutes. How long had that team been together? And as soon as you fuck around the cohesion performance.
That I was listening to the radio on the way up about Steve Ball. We obviously just been kicked out of the World Cup, about how he's so data driven. And I think the more you actually can, there's so many things you can apply to sport, to food. I want to talk to you, Tom, about, you said on the podcast, if people actually knew, I don't know what podcast I listened to, if people knew about the horrors of the supply chain, like if we were to open those blinkers or take the blindfold off, then it would change the way we kind of consume food or go to restaurants. Like, what is the horrors of supply chain across the industry? First question that most people won't know or acknowledge when they're having food, and then how are you trying to change that, make your dent in that?
I think the biggest horror for me is it's either conscious ignorance or subconscious ignorance, which I'm not sure which one of those is worse, but it's restaurants who don't know where their food's from or don't care where their food's from. And I think that's the majority of restaurants. And then when I say restaurants, I mean that specific restaurant. So that waiter who's serving that food, who's selling that food, do they know where it's from? Do they know what system that food supports? The vast majority, and you go, the big chicken brands, go in there and ask where their chicken's from. They'll be like, no idea. And they don't want you to know because they're not proud of it. And there are things, there's things that I realised that Honest was doing that wasn't as good as they could be. And some of these things come with massive pressures, not just financial, but also like infrastructure. Like, how can you create something that's doing good and gets consistent supply of it? And it's fucking hard. But generally, I think the issue with food is we're just overly reliant upon chemical inputs. And that's not, and I know I'm biased a little bit, but I know a lot about this and I've done a lot of research. It's not as simple as meat is bad, plants are good. Like there are terrible inconsistencies with people's understandings. And I've had many passionate sort of young vegans who will try and we'll put a post out about something, normally about regenerative farming, that we really support and we think should be a really big part of how the world feeds itself, for the foreseeable.
Sorry for sounding dumb here, but regenerative farming, if
you think about it as a system where so it's a food system where for us it's a journey of continuous improvement. So organic is a really good example of something that's doing a lot of good, but it's really closed organic. And for most farming systems, they can't even contemplate becoming organic because it's a very difficult thing to jump on board with financially, the time frames around it. It's very hard. But if you think of organic in terms of using less chemical inputs, and when I say chemical inputs, I mean, pesticides are poisons. Like if you drank a pint of pesticide, you'd be dead. But this is the stuff we spray all over our fields, and then we expect that we can then eat that and it'd be totally safe for our health. Like, I just don't think that's possible. There are pesticides that farmers use that farmers won't even go on the field for 3 or 4 days afterwards because they know the health risks to it. And that's the stuff that then goes into the food, and then we then process it and we eat it. Like, stuff like that really terrifies me, and just how depleted our systems are, how depleted our soils are, how overly reliant we are on fossil fuels in farming systems, whether it's meats or plants. So stuff like that does terrify me. And there's stats that are thrown out. There's people saying we've got 55, 60 harvests left before our topsoils are so depleted that we won't be able to grow on. And there's lots of people saying that's bullshit, and I don't know enough about that. But for me, food systems that work with nature feel far more logical than food systems that try and replace nature. And then sadly, the majority are trying to replace nature. And that's systems that are, monocrop agriculture, intensive cattle farming, intensive poultry farming, all those things. They rely on third-party inputs, pesticides, fertilizers, bought-in feed, shit like that. Whereas, for us, regenerative cattle, the majority of their life, they're in a field eating grass grown from the ground on that same field. Like, compare that with an intensive farmed animal that spends its life eating horrible food that makes its fucking shit toxic and gets pumped full of worming agents and antibiotics because it's ill, because it's surrounded by another 2,000 animals. All those things. Like, I think if people saw that and they knew that what they were about to put in their body came from that system, I'm not saying everyone, most people go, I don't fucking care, I'm just hungry. But I do think a few people, a percentage of them would go, I don't want to support that. And that's what we're trying to basically show the business at our scale. You can do it better. You can be more curious about where the food's from, and you can show people that kind of curiosity.
Again, it goes back to, it's almost that whole, when you took the path of most resistance with the potatoes, it's like you're doing that this is the new version of that with the way you're sourcing the ingredients. And I think what you said there about like the conscious ignorance or ignorant.
Yeah. Look, consumers, it's not just restaurants, it's customers.
Yeah.
Customers are worse, I think, because they're just like, like, can I buy a whole chicken and it costs £3 at the supermarket? Like, they know that's not.
But also from a brand perspective as well. So I interviewed the founder of Union Coffee. So a really interesting guy, and he was like, we've got this whole backstory. Like, he was one of the first guys to almost bring the coffee culture to the UK. Super interesting guy, and they've done all this stuff for the farms over in Guatemala and Colombia. And he was like, we tried to put that on the packaging, and if we're being really brutally honest, the consumer did not give a monkeys. Like, the consumer was like, does this coffee taste good? Yes or no? How strong is it? And it's like, well,
what does it cost?
Our mission is so they've had to do this thing where it's like, okay, we're going to put as much as we can on the pack, but it's like the consumer doesn't really care. And it's like
quality, it has to taste good. I think that's what the whole plant-based meat bubble burst, because they realised actually it doesn't taste as good as everyone was imagining. They were like,
it's not good for the planet either.
Yeah, it's not great for the planet. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your bank balance because it's extortionately expensive. But it was, it was the next Silicon Valley kind of, boom, we can IP food and all this kind of stuff. But if it doesn't taste good, then don't even bother. Like, that's kind of seems quite a simple statement to make, but a lot of people were fucked up on that.
My mum said something the other day that stuck. This went around, the planet, and she's talking about getting electric. Her car's, she's got this little Mini and it's dying. She's like, I'm going to get an electric car next. And I was like, how are you going to, she lives in Bury Edmonds in Suffolk, right? And I was like, how are you going to charge it? Like, I've got a little lamppost on my street and she doesn't have a driveway and there isn't a lamppost to charge in her street. How are you going to charge it? She was like, I don't know, but I've accepted the fact that my life was going to just be a bit more difficult, but it's the right thing to do. And I was like, holy shit, like, that's cool, isn't it? Like, she was like, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but I don't have a petrol car anymore. And I was like, that single thing of like, our behaviours are going to have to change a little bit if we're going to sort this problem out. And like you said, we've got kids.
Are electric cars the answer though? That's another.
Well, I think they're probably better than petrol cars, but like, you know, we've got to look our kids in the eye, right? You're going to have to look after in the eye, man, in 30 years' time, and whatever you've left behind, he's going to ask you why you didn't do more, probably, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, a few more things I want to explore. I'm loving this, gents. It's learning so much. I want to talk about your behavioural science masters. Is masters, yeah. You both are super curious in your own kind of avenues, and it comes together. It's super interesting. What are some of the lessons you've taken from, like, actually, no, one step back. Why did you go on that course? Like, what piqued your curiosity? And then what are some of the lessons you've taken from that you allow to pour into Honest?
Yeah, a bunch of things, really. I mean,
Just go to the toilet a second.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of, I've got some friends that are really into it. A friend of mine started a great business called Cogload. Cogload. You should get him on the podcast, by the way. Jerome Rebo.
What does Cogload?
He's created these little behavioural science nuggets. It's like an online. He's created a language. It's a bit like Duolingo for behavioural science. So, like, for people who don't understand, haven't interacted with it, like, he's distilled loads of papers and research into like nuggets. He calls them little.
Oh, sick!
It's
Yeah.
He's but just a great guy, just really engaging. You should look him up.
Yeah. So you had your mates doing it.
Yes, I've always been interested. I liked this. I liked it. It felt like a good step forward away from philosophy, which I love as well. Like, I love the whole "is the table really there" stuff. But, you know, it's a great conversation. I think it's good for. I think if everybody did philosophy for a year, I think the world would be a better place. But
I'm going to come back to that because that's super interesting.
But behavioral science felt like a bit more a scientific data kind of led thing. Although didn't really get into the data was. Yeah, the statistic stuff was a kind of happy offshoot, like incredibly difficult. Sorry, bad answer to a simple question. I had a bit of imposter syndrome as well, actually, sort of seeing the world outside of Honest properly for the first time and stepping out and interact with other businesses. I didn't want to just be Phil, the co-founder of Honest. And I know, like, I'm really proud of what we've done, and I'm not trying to sound modest, but I don't want to sound arrogant either. Like I think we did a really good thing. Like, I think we worked really hard, and it's a good story. Like, you've heard some of it, like, it's true. You know, so I love being Phil, the co-founder of Honest, and I love the respect and the accolade that you get from that. But I also felt this, like, I have an opinion on culture, as you've heard, quite passionately, and I have an opinion on operations and people. And I didn't want it just to be backed up by some fuck ups and some things I've done well or not so well within Honest in one place. I wanted some academia behind it, I think, was probably the real reason. I felt a bit like, a bit of an existential, like, who am I really? Like, I'm just a founder of a burger thing, and I didn't do it on my own. Geez, I couldn't have done it on my own, you know, like, and it wasn't just Tom Bio. We had to talk about Dorian, our third co-founder, you know, he was instrumental in a lot of this. So I had a bit of imposter syndrome, and I just love behavioral science. So I thought I would love behavioral science, and I do, and I did. And it's just such a good subject. Like,
what is for people who may not understand what it is, what would you say the definition for behavioral science is? I think
there's a couple of things that, you know, there's two ways I describe it. If you think about economics on one side, that, like, the history of behavioral science kind of follows this path of the joining of economics and psychology. So behavioral science kind of is not taking something from either, but kind of its own thing. But if you think economics is like the rational, like 2 + 2 is 4, and the way humans make decisions and behave is we go through this rational process of this, and this. That's the kind of Homo economicus view of behavior. And then the psychologists are a bit more interested in the psyche and neurology and stuff like that. Whereas behavioral science is the kind of merging of those two things. So I think a good example is if I said to you, you know, I'll give you £10 now, or I'll give you 20 quid in 6 weeks' time. What would you take?
Probably 10 an hour.
Yeah, most people take the 10 an hour, right? So in theory, the economist doesn't get that answer. That makes no rational sense. I've just offered you 20 quid and you've taken 10, right?
Yeah.
So there is this thing going on in your brain that's saying, it's called present bias. The idea is that we value things right now twice as much as we value things in the future, right? Now how far in the future is, you know, if I'd have said next week for 20 quid, you'd probably wait. So there's a level of kind of critical thought that's going on there in your brain, and present bias is saying, take the tenner, right? So that's behavioral science. It's understanding why the hell did you take the tenner, right? Like, you know, we all know that if we bought a better washing machine, it would save us, you know, be more economical and better for the planet. But a washing machine costs like 400 quid. And actually right now that feels like a lot of money. Whereas the money I'll save in the next 3 years, 5 years for having a better washing machine it's harder to get hold of. We're talking about washing machines.
Yeah, but behavioral science and food is mad, or hospitality is mad, because there's things you can do that don't make sense but can have a huge emotional impact. I think that's why Rory Sutherland's obsessed with food, and like I think one of the reasons he wanted he's come on this podcast a few times because we just talk about food specifically, and so like there's stuff I went to there's things you can't. He always talks about pre-rationalization and post-rationalization. There's things that make sense retrospectively, but like in food, like as you said, the way Nigel speaks to a customer, that little thing, it doesn't make necessary sense, but can have a huge emotional impact.
There's a guy that one of my favourite studies. Again, you have to be careful with these because it's one study, one small sample size. Would it replicate? I don't know, but like this guy was trying to debunk market research. He was like, total waste of time. Like asking people all these questions and then deciding what product you're going to build or how you're going to market it, waste of time. And he tried to prove it by having two groups and two separate rooms. And this group had to drink, they both had to drink a French and a German wine. Same wine in both rooms, right? Two wines, both in the same wine in two different groups. And after tasting both, you had all the tasting notes and who made it and the look of the bottle and the label and the design, all the things. And what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of this? And which one would you buy? Most of the people in this room bought the French wine. And most of the people in this room bought the German wine. And it was simply because in this room you play French music and in this room you play German music. So like there's this thing. And I love that. Like now.
Wait, so he did debunk market research?
What his study seems to suggest so. I mean,
because there's the David Ogilvy quote, which Rory talks about a lot, which is people don't think what they feel, they don't say what they act. Or don't
listen to any. If I was going to be written, this is too extreme. But I've got myself to the point, which is kind of the pineapple stuff. Really, it's like I have no interest in what you tell me. I'll watch what you do. Like we do something called VIBs at Honest, very important burgers, and it's a benefit for our staff. They can come for up to 4 burgers once a month. They can bring whoever they want, right?
Very important
burgers. Yeah. Except for VIPs.
Yeah.
And again, Ollie, our main man, Ollie. We keep talking about Ollie, don't we? He brought that in. And I remember one of the most interesting stats I'd had in the history of Honest. It really made me sit back and go, like, proper KPI, and made me go, ooh. He said, do you know how many people are redeeming that, Phil? And I was like, no fucking idea. Like, it's a really nice thing we've done. Sounds great. Good soundbite for LinkedIn. We do VIBs. And he was like, but do you know how many people are using it? It was like 8% or something, right? And I was like, oh. Right. Now, look, maybe they're just sick of burgers and they don't want to, but they didn't have to be there. The rule was you don't have to go. Like, this is for your mum and dad when they come visit you in London. Take them to your place that you work, right? When your mates come and see you, take them for a burger where you work. So is there a better metric for pride than that 8%? I was like, if you were really proud to work at Honest, then I would have thought that'd have been higher. It's probably not the only data point, and I'm not saying people aren't proud to work at Honest, so it's not foolproof. But so I'm really not interested in that. But if I asked all those people, hey, you're really proud to work at Honest, like, would you take your mum for a burger? She came to visit. Yeah, of course I would, Phil. Of course I would. Yeah. But you don't. Like, you don't ever. You've never redeemed it once. Like,
I share the same kind of views, I think, around feedback and like getting. I really struggle with getting feedback on food, and that's my own kind of stubborn issue I have. But
sorry, by that you mean so like feedback from customers or staff within,
no, the feedback from a customer who's had a good or bad experience. So that is what it is. When we launch a new product, and we've had lots of marketers and brand people come and go, and they're like, cool, so I'm going to get a focus group and I want to get 12 vegans and they're going to try the new vegan burger, and then they'll let you know what they think. And I was like, yeah, I just don't really think it makes any sense.
Well, they might have been listening to a certain type of music when you ask them as well.
No, but they're coming in. You're not a customer coming to one of our restaurants and ordering that burger and eating it is a completely different experience to asking someone who doesn't do this for a living to come into an environment with a fucking clipboard and give us the feedback of that experience. They are two completely separate things. But that's what you build your fucking food product on is get everyone in a room like this and tell us exactly what you think and pretend that you're a chef so you can really you're gonna talk about the seasoning, and it's like
but there'll be so many things, like we carry these biases and judgment around all the time, and you won't be aware of half of them, but like there's so many reasons why someone would choose something over something else, and it might have nothing to do with the food, and that's what's terrifying. Like,
but I also think like with when you solicit all this feedback, is you end up with very vanilla answers, which makes vanilla brands. So like with the category I always talk about is protein bars, right? You have Grenade, who actually did something really interesting, and then a whole smorgasbord of brands that just looked the same because they were all looking at the same feedback. And I always think when one of my big beliefs in kind of the way I approach the podcast is ask the questions you want to ask, because you've got to follow your curiosity. And I think create the burger you want to create the pizza you want to create. And, you know, like, imagine if John Lennon started soliciting feedback for every fucking song he wrote. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't be John Lennon if David Bowie solicits feedback. So I think
stuff by committee.
Yeah. I'm completely with you. I think you can. He puts the song out to the world, you put your burger out to the world, and that's what you want to put out to the world, and it seems to be working. I think it's really interesting. I completely agree. I think it just dilutes the sharp arrow you've got and becomes really blunt.
Yeah, agreed.
But then you can still make the right. You can make behaviourally scientific decisions, right? You can look at, and this is what Jerome would tell you from Coglow. Like, there's things that you can do that will make your messaging more powerful.
Is there any examples of how you've applied that?
Probably not so much honest. I'm not qualified yet. So.
You're what do they say, a master of nothing?
Not yet. Yeah. No, I'm trying to think of some better examples. But like Jerome did. There's the thing you do. He got everyone to do. I did one of his training days, and he got everyone to draw a poster to get people to give blood. And everyone was like, "Just give blood," and all this kind of stuff. This was the thing. The NHS used a behavioural science unit to help them with not enough people giving blood, and they basically a huge influence on behaviour is group social norms. Right, if everyone else is doing something, then we're more likely to do it. So the NHS ended up, instead of having just give blood, I think was their thing. They changed it to 250 people have given blood in the last week in your area. And it improved by like 12%. So it's not like, it's always little marginal gains. It's not like there's this silver bullet to everything, but just the flip of like telling you, like, we like autonomy, we don't like being told what to do, and actually it doesn't work. Like, now think about offices, right? I mean, when people don't like clean your coffee cups and all those, like, you got like poster police in your businesses that like put posters everywhere and everything, trying to get people to do shit. It doesn't fucking work, right? It doesn't work. Like put paper goes in here. It's like, fuck off. Like, no one, it doesn't work. I'm telling you, it doesn't work. Like, there's better things you can do from a behavioural science point of view that'll get people to.
The one Rory talks about is, have you seen when you're speeding, if you're speeding, I should say, when you're going a little bit too fast in those 30 miles per hour zones, it's got the face that does the sad face. Have you seen that? Like,
almost got the smiley face.
Yeah, it's got the smiley face with the sad face. That apparently had, like, the results of that, I haven't got them off the top of my head, were way crazier in people slowing down than like the old punitive ways of getting people slowed down. It's literally just like a fucking smiley face.
It's behavioural science, man. That's why I love it. And there's not an example you can think of in the consumer world where you can't apply a bit of it, or you're at the wrong end of it or the right end of it.
Yeah. A few more things I want to wrap up with, and then I'll
work you out the time. Man.
Yeah. There's literally two more questions. What's one truth you both hold? Well, it could be different. What's one truth you hold that most people would disagree with you on?
God, what have we got? I think trust is lost, not earned. I think you have to place trust in people and then have them lose it for you, rather than people have to earn it. And I think I'm in the minority on that. Should I say that again?
No, mate. Yes, the coffee's wearing off of my brain.
Trust is the trust is one of the most interesting things for me. I'm actually doing my thesis on this idea of the lowest common denominator effect, which is when you dumb down your processes for the lowest common denominator in the room. And there's loads of, in product, it's about mass market. How do you dumb down a product to mass appeal? Makes total sense. But there's no one's done this from a cultural sort of corporate sense, which is why I'm hoping to get some good results. But some people have done it in education, like the idea that, you have to tailor the teaching to the stupidest kid in the room. And then for me, then of course the implications of that on the smartest kids, right? There's loads of examples. So I'm doing something it's called the lowest common denominator effect. And ultimately without going into too much detail, where that path leads you is this idea of trust. And I think there's definitely two camps, and I think I'm in the minority, given how many people I've spoken to about it, where certainly businesses at scale, are you willing to say, I hired you for a reason, I trusted you the job, give you the autonomy and the space to go and do it, and then you have to then break that trust. You're going to have to do something for me not to trust you anymore.
But you're saying trust is earned, not given.
No, I'm the other way. I want to be the other way. Okay. I mean, I definitely used to be a trust is earned guy, and I totally get it. It's compelling. It's safer. It's not. It's, you know, from running a business point of view, it makes total sense that someone has to come in, earn your trust, and then you kind of release them into the world, if at all. I would say my truth. My truth, is that your question?
Well, it's one truth that you agree with.
I
Most
think
people
some people agree with me. Certainly, more behavioural scientists, people I spend time with, agree are on this kind of that trust is lost. But I think definitely in the corporate world, most people believe that employees and people have to earn your trust before they get it fully. So I'm the other one.
What about you, mate?
So I'm really struggling, and I think I was saying earlier, my son is not sleeping at the moment, so my brain is like scrambled egg, and this is quite a deep question, and Phil's just come up with a bang. I'm like, fuck, I don't know. My brain is not being my friend. Come back to me.
Well, then that's where I want to wrap up. I asked this to all guests, and you've teamed me up perfectly, mate, who've got kids. Because I think it's just an interesting lens. But like, what's one piece? I know your sort of son's only 10 months old, right? And Theo's only like 8. But what's one piece of advice you'd pass on to them, do you think? And yeah, whoever wants to go first on that.
We touched on it earlier, and I believe there's so much. I've spoken to so many people who seem to have everything in place to go off and do something themselves, but something's holding them back. I don't know what that is. You know, they're the only ones who know that. So I will support my son in any way I can for him to just do it and get on with it. And that's my. I know it sounds like a real basic one, but I just can't tell you how common it is. Maybe it's just hospitality, because there are lots of scary barriers. And I think the big one for me is everyone, and Phil said it, mentioned it earlier, like, I think everyone thinks that me and him have this like special power to get honest to where it's got to today. But so much of it was actually, we just got on with it, and we made a ton of fucking mistakes. And, you know, I think one of the best quotes I've heard is, it's only a mistake if you make it twice. Like, you make the mistake, you live by it, you earn it, you wear it on the, you know, on your sleeve, and then you move on. I think those things are superpowers, and I do think they're things that people tend to struggle with. But yeah, for Arthur, I just want him to get on with stuff. I really will. I'll be pushing him to be proactive and then follow his passions in life, because it's so easy to just put it off. Procrastination is like everyone's worst enemy, and we all fucking do it. It's so easy now with TikTok and social media, just drain your brain away for days.
Yeah.
And then so I think but for me it'll be really trying to push him into things he enjoys, whatever that is.
Amazing. Fine for you, Phil.
Sorry, I'm a bit like, you gave me loads of time there to think of a really good answer, and I'm still struggling. I mean, I've got a son and my daughter's 6. I was about to say, would I say different messages? I wouldn't. I don't know. One piece of advice. What advice would I give my kid? Life's not that serious. Like, don't take life too seriously. Like, it's not like... When I say this out loud, I think it sounds really dark and morbid, but I find it completely like liberating. Like, no one gives a fuck about you, really. Like, outside of your friends and family, no one cares. Like, you talk about customers, like putting all the people don't give a fuck. Like, imagine, like, you don't affect many people's lives. Like, most people die and they're forgotten, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, and I don't want to be. I've got an ego, right? I want people to ask us how we did it, and I love doing stuff like this. Like, I'm not shaking I'm trying to share the fact that I've got an ego, but like, I want my kids to think, don't worry about who you are or life too much. It's not that serious, because no one really gives a fuck about you outside of your close family and your close mates. Like, after that, no one really gives a shit. So like, I find that completely liberating. Other people would be like curled up in a ball in a fetal position.
There's a guy I follow on Twitter who on September the 8th, because it's my birthday this year, put out saying, oh, by the way, this time last year, the Queen of England died. Yeah. And he goes, you completely forgot about that. And that was probably the most important person in the world. And his whole thing was like, you're not fucking important. Just go and do it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, even the Queen, you forget about the Queen.
You're not important.
Yeah, but London makes people feel like I spend a lot of time up in Scotland, and I do it because it makes me feel totally insignificant.
So
you go for a hike on a mountain and you don't meet another human being, and you realize that that shit has been existing for millions of years, doesn't give a shit what's going on in the financial markets of London and blah, blah, blah. It just continues. Whereas when you're here, you're just like, oh, I've got this and I've got to do that, and I'm looking to buy that, and that guy, that looks cool, and I want to make that person happy, and it's like
so true. So I guess my advice is to my son and my daughter: no one gives a fuck about you, and
apart from Daddy,
and they're not important.
go get him, tigers.
Like, what's your great granddad's name? Exactly.
There we go. That is,
You can't even remember your great granddad. So the idea that anyone in this fucking planet remembers us, like very few people actually.
Go to a graveyard and just realise how many of those people are just gone and
you think about what people get upset about these days. I don't want to talk about this. People choosing to be offended, which is one of the most annoying things about the world we live in now. Like choosing to be offended by stuff, and but like you think about some of the things that people worry about and get upset about and stress about. And then there's some really important shit that no one seems to give a fuck about, right? But and I just think, you know what? You're not important. You're not important. Just get on with it. Do what you want to do. Be nice to people, and just have a fucking go.
Gents, I've absolutely loved that. I feel like we could keep going, but it was insane.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
man.
so much.